What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto had a secret lover, and her death unleashed a power that could end nations? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Konohagakure no Sato has defiantly seen better days. Would be the musings of people on the road to this village. The great ninja village was in flames, but it is clear that whatever tried to bring it down did not succeed. Most of the building were still standing tall and proud of their survival and resilience. Not even the great Kyuubi no Kitsune could destroy it. However, there was a price for defeating such a beast. Deep in the forest was a family. One man with spiky blonde hair, Junin vest and a white coat with red flames gently licking the bottom. One woman with a white high-collar blouse and a green apron-like dress. She had beautiful red hair. These two people were currently hugging and smiling with their newborn children. In the woman's arms was a boy with blonde spiky hair not unlike his father and 3 whisker-like marks on his face. The man was holding a girl with red hair not unlike her mother and had whisker marks like her brother. The comfortable silence was broken by the blonde. "We should go home, Kushina-chan, it was a long day. Could you hear Ishinis there, Minato-kun? I don't think I can walk," replied the now named redhead. "Yes, I have chakra for one last flash." They chuckled together at the joke on his monikir. There was a yellow flash of light and the family was no longer there. They continued to live their life, raising their children unaware of the future that was sure to come. Minato woke up with his wife next to him. He smiled. He was unimaginably happy. He is now a father and to twins no less. But his good mood didn't last long when one of his Anbu shattered the peaceful morning. The Anbu was wearing the standard uniform, meaning black pants and shirt along with grey chest armor, shin guards and forearm protectors. He has a mask representing a dog. The very noticeable feature, however, was his silver spiky hair. The Anbu bowed and said, "Lord Hokage, we were searching for you forever. The council awaits you. They want to talk about what happened last night." Minato smirked and said, "Kakashi, what did I say about bowing to me when we are alone?" The now dubbed Kakashi scratched the back of his head, looked at his boss and said hesitantly, "That I shouldn't?" The blonde smiled and asked, "Yep, so why are you?" The silver-haired teen stood up, still scratching his head, and answered, "Sorry, it's a habit." Minato then realized that Kakashi has not commented on the babies that were sleeping with their mother right next to him. That confused him greatly, so he decided to ask, "Kakashi, for someone who managed to get into Anbu at age 14, you aren't that perceptive." Kakashi took off his dog mask, showing one confused eye, his right. His Konoha headband was tilted so it covered his left eye, and he had a face mask effectively hiding his whole face except his right eye. "What do you mean, sensei?" Now Minato was worried that his student was going blind. "Just look to my left and tell me what you see." Kakashi took a look and his eye widened. Then he asked with a shaky breath, "Sensei, are those your children?" Now Minato was extremely worried for Kakashi because that was a quite dumb question. "Yes, just look at my son, he has hair like me and my daughter has the same hair like Kushina-chan." Kakashi finally managed to get out of his shock and asked, "What are their names?" Minato smiled, remembering why they chose these names, and enlightened Kakashi. "My son is Naruto after Jiraiya sensei's first book's main character, and my daughter is named Mito after Mito-sama." Kakashi chuckled and asked, "How did Jiraiya-sama take it?" Minato happily answered. He was overjoyed and honored. "I remember that gigawatt smile he had. I thought I was going blind by how he shined." He chuckled at the end. He stood up from the bed and stretched while saying to Kakashi that they should go. Minato grabbed Kakashi by his shoulder and they disappeared in a yellow flash, but not before looking back at his new family and smiling brightly. The council room. Minato and Kakashi appeared right in front of the doors that led to an undoubtedly tiring council meeting. Kakashi put on his mask and nodded at Minato. He just sighed and opened the big double doors and stepped in with Kakashi in tow. The conversation instantly went quiet. Minato calmly sat on his chair and asked, "All of you probably want to know what happened yesterday night, am I right?" Everyone present except the Anbu nodded their silent yes. "Last night we were attacked by the Kyuubi no Kitsune." The civilian side of the council gasped as they didn't know this. "I was going to seal the Kyuubi into my newborn daughter when I was knocked out." Many no held curious faces as they wanted to know what happened, but Shikaku Nara, a clan head of the Nara clan, was already connecting this information to the missing member of the council. He has black hair, a pineapple hairstyle with 2 scars on the right side of his face, and is wearing a high-collared, worn and torn jacket on top of his Junin vest. Beneath that vest is a mesh shirt. He has black pants. Minato continued mentally praising the intelligent Nara. When I woke up I found out that someone else took my place and sacrificed his life in exchange for mine. My savior and the one who sealed the Kyuubi was the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Everyone gasped at this information and the shinobi side bowed their heads in respect. As I already mentioned, my daughter, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, was chosen to hold the Kyuubi and she should be hailed as a hero. The shinobi side and half of the civilian side nodded in agreement. But the second half were quietly planning their revenge for the Kyuubi, but they are not stupid. They know they can't touch her right now, but perhaps in a decade when she will be a kunoichi. It took another hour to discuss their next move, as they need to appear as strong as ever. But they have done it in the end. Their plan is simple. As they have less shinobi after the attack, Minato will be forced to send lower-ranked shinobi on higher-ranked missions. That means more intensive training for their genin and chunin. The meeting was adjourned at last and Minato can be with his family along with Kakashi. Minato knows he left out the masked man, but he felt it wasn't important for them to know. He has a family to take care of now. But Minato could never have known that their hatred for his daughter will be his son's fall into darkness. Perhaps it was meant to be. A brother will always protect his sister. Time skip 6 years after the Kyuubi attack. A family of 4 were at their home. A tall, spiky-haired blonde man was sitting in a wooden chair at a table, reading his newspaper. A tall, red-headed woman was at the stove, presumably cooking breakfast. Then there were small carbon copies of them running around. A spiky, blonde-haired child was running around wearing a red t-shirt with brown shorts. Running playfully away from her brother was a red-haired child with an orange t-shirt with forest green shorts. He finally caught up with her and began tickling her from behind. She laughed and rolled on the floor, her brother still tickling her. "Naruto-kun, stop. Please stop," she pleaded while laughing. The now-dubbed Naruto stopped tickling his sister and smirked. "You must say that I won, otherwise I am gonna tickle you again." Naruto folded his arms triumphantly. "Okay, I Mito Uzumaki Namikaze name you the winner," the now-dubbed Mito said while rolling her eyes. Naruto smiled and helped her get up. "See, that wasn't too hard, was it?" He teased her as they neared the kitchen. "No fair, you were always faster than me," she said while pouting. "Don't worry, Ka-san and Tu-san will be training us in 2 years to be ninjas and you can work to be faster than me," Naruto said encouragingly while entering the kitchen. His sister was pouting because she doesn't like to wait for 2 years. "Good morning, Ka-san, Tu-san." The twins greeted their parents. Minato put down his newspaper. "Ah, you are awake. Good, because I would have to come to wake you up," Minato said while smiling sweetly. Mito and Naruto shivered because they don't like to be splashed with water again. "Minato-kun, don't scare the children. They will fear water and then what are we gonna do?" said Kushina as she finished cooking and began serving breakfast with Minato helping her. It was a simple breakfast, just eggs with bacon and toast. "Kids, I got great news. I am free today so we can go to the festival like you wanted," Minato said while grinning, knowing that the twins always wanted to go to the festival but he couldn't go so nobody did. Kushina smiled at their children's cheering and asked Minato a question. "How come you have a free day?" You could tell by her voice that she was curious. "Well, I just ordered Shikaku to do it." Although he seemed suspiciously happy, the tall blonde answered while scrunching his face in thought. Kushina giggled and said, "That is probably because he knows he can sleep undisturbed because the pile of paperwork isn't getting smaller even when if you actually fill it." The twins laughed at their dad as he facepalmed. "I am idiot. Of course he will sleep. Thank God that the Hokage office has a roof or all Naras would volunteer for the job." Kushina laughed with the kids. Time skip, evening. It was evening now and our favorite family was preparing for the festival. Minato wore a simple blue male kimono with golden trims. Kushina wore a red kimono with green trims. Mito was wearing an orange kimono with purple trims and Naruto was wearing a male version of his mother's kimono but with black trims. They walked out of their 2-story house into the night full of stars. There were multiple games to play at the festival and the twins were quick to acknowledge. When he was playing around and laughing with his parents along sister, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. As they walked to another game he took a quick glance at a side alley. What he found was interesting to say the least. People were whispering in the shadows of the alley. They were also sending meaningful glares at his sister. He started to notice more people in the crowd that also shot his sister hateful glares. He wondered why, but in the end it didn't matter to him. If anyone was planning on hurting his sister, he will make them pay. He knows he can't do anything right now, but when he will be trained by his parents in the shinobi arts he will be able to protect his sister. Until then he would just observe these people and bring it up to his father. Getting rid of these thoughts by shaking his head, he took a look around. He was so into his thoughts that he didn't notice that they were seated at a stadium waiting for the fireworks. For a while the fireworks were being fired as usual, but then several launched at the same time and formed an image of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That is when he remembered why this festival is being held. It was the 10th of October, the day the Kyuubi was defeated by his father. But for him and his sister it was simply their birthday. After the fireworks they walked back home. Once at home everyone changed to their home attire. The children came down the stairs in a hurry. They were very excited what their parents will give them. When they came down the stairs they were surprised who they saw. Kakashi ni-san. Came the shouts of the twins as they tackled the mask-wearing man to the ground wearing happy grins. Hey kiddos, haven't seen you for a month. Naruto-kun, you have gotten taller, haven't you? And you Mito-chan, you have gotten even prettier. He said while eyes smiling at them. Naruto puffs out his chest proudly and Mito blushes for being called pretty. Kakashi laughed at their reaction as they got up from the ground. So Kaka ni, where were you for those 2 months? We missed you, Datbeo. Demanded Naruto while tapping his foot with his arms crossed and a stern expression on his face. Mito giggled at his pose. Minato's sweat dropped at his student's nickname and Kushina chuckles nervously while scratching her head because of his verbal tick that he got from her. Kakashi chuckled and apologized. Sorry, the mission was supposed to be simple but I ended up using my Sharingan. Naruto and Mito were stunned because for Kakashi to use his Sharingan his opponent needs to be a low S-rank shinobi at least. But enough about me, this is your day and I brought both of you presents, but I think that they should be last. He smirked when he heard the twins' disappointed groans. Minato chuckled and beckoned Mito to him while Kushina did the same for Naruto. Minato took Mito to the living room to give her his gift. He turned around and noticed that his daughter was almost bouncing on her feet from excitement. Softly chuckling to himself he knelt so they would see eye to eye. Mito-chan, I want you to have this. It is very special to me and it might come in handy one day. Do not lose it. He smiled sadly and handed Mito a long wrapped up bundle. Do not use this unless you have to. It is a last resort. And don't look what it is. He said softly but sternly. Mito was confused and decided to ask, but To-san, if I don't know what it is then how am I supposed to know when to use it? Minato smiled and ruffled her hair. Truth be told I don't know what it is or how to use it. But it has a legend. When the protector needs to be protected it will call upon thee to draw its power and return the favor to the protector. That is all I know. He said while having a puzzled look on his face, trying to solve the legend along with his daughter. But nothing came to them. Alright, we should get back to the kitchen. I heard a rumor about a cake being hidden there. Minato said with a smile as he saw Mito forget about the bundle and ran to the kitchen, eager to get the first piece. Meanwhile with Naruto and Kushina. Kushina led her son to her shared bedroom. Once there she sat on the bed patting the spot next to her for Naruto to occupy. When he was seated she grinned and handed the also grinning Naruto a small object wrapped up in a red cloth. Naruto stared at it curiously then attempted to take off the cloth only for Kushina to stop him and say, No, Sochi, don't. It is supposed to be used only if a certain condition is met. Naruto stared at it confusingly before asking, Do you know what the condition is then, Ka-san? Kushina nodded while smiling. Yep, it is said that when the owner discovers the truth behind light and dark, he will gain an incredible power to spread that truth. I apparently haven't discovered the truth so I am giving it to you. Maybe you have a better understanding of light and dark. Kushina smiled when he promised he would discover the truth. He never broke a promise. Now I think there might be cake downstairs. Why don't we get a slice before your To-san eats it all? Kushina ran after her hyperactive son who was laughing at the little race. Both groups arrived at the same time. They freezed upon the sight of each other. Then they all looked at the cake that was between them on the table, then to each other again. There was a standoff about who will make the first move for the first slice of the cake. The atmosphere was tense until Kakashi leaned his head from behind the cake, looking at them, then at his plate with the first piece of cake, back at them, cake, them, cake, them. Then at once the whole family pounced on Kakashi, whose eye widened comically while running around with the plate in his hands. They were running around like children, suddenly forgetting they were shinobi. Time skip 2 years, Naruto and Mito are 8 years old. Naruto and Mito were sitting in the backyard cross-legged with their eyes closed. Their parents were watching from a distance. Mito then opened her eyes and looked confused for a moment and then asked her parents, "To-san, Ka-san, why do I have a blue ball of chakra and a larger red one? You said there is one ball, not two." Minato and Kushina shared a look before Kushina answered, "Don't worry about it for now, Mito-chan. We will tell you when you are older. For now ignore the red one and try to bring out the blue one." Kushina smiled softly at the end. Naruto opened one eye and asked innocently, "And will you tell where babies come from when we are older?" Minato and Kushina blushed and scratched their heads while chuckling nervously. "Why yes honey, we will tell when you are older as well." Naruto was fortunately satisfied with the answer and closed his eye to focus better. Suddenly Mito was covered with a soft blue glow. She opened her violet eyes and cheered. Kushina, being a censor, estimated her chakra to be at high Chunin to low Junin levels. Not surprising considering she was a Jinchuriki. She told her discovery to Minato with a smile and they both congratulated Mito for unlocking her chakra. The three of them noticed that Naruto was struggling. He was sweating and his face was scrunched in concentration. What they didn't know is that something important was happening in his mind. Naruto's vision. He was in a dark alley. In front of him was a man shrouded in shadows. The only thing he could see were his softly glowing yellow eyes. Light is a label for deeds done for a good purpose. Dark is a label for deeds done for an evil purpose. Light and dark are just concepts, lies, a tool for manipulation. You will know the truth when you discover your purpose. The shadow said cryptically and then disappeared. Naruto was confused but didn't have time to dwell on it because his world went black. Vision end. Naruto was engulfed in a blue energy that was swirling around him, even cracking the ground. The energy then settled down to a small blue glow around him. He opened his eyes and cheered along with Mito, who hugged him and he hugged her back. Minato and Kushina were shocked. Minato, he now has low Chunin chakra, but at the beginning he had low Kage. She said, further shocking Minato before he smiled and said to Kushina, "Doesn't matter, now we have to create a training schedule for them both." He smiled as he hugged Kushina as they were both looking at the cheering twins. That year they went to the academy where they made quick friends with kids their age. Their little group consisted of several future clan heads. Sasuke Uchiha was Naruto's first friend after he beat him in a spar and showed him that arrogance will get him nowhere. Sasuke surprisingly accepted it and they become friends even though it looked like they didn't like each other. They constantly called each other names but it was all a game. Mito's first friend was Hinata Hyuga, a shy and timid girl. She was able to bring her out of her shell and get her to open up. Then there was the Ino Shika Cho trio. It consisted of Ino Yamanaka, a cheerful girl with a teasing streak. Shikamaru Nara, a lazy boy with a quick mind, and Choji Akamichi, a chubby boy with a heart of gold. There was also Kiba Inuzuka, a brash and reckless boy with a little puppy named Akamaru. Sakura Haruno was a bit insecure girl because of her bigger forehead. But once Naruto complimented her on her forehead, she was as cheerful as Ino and became quick friends with her. Shino Aburame was also in their little group. When they asked him if he wanted to be with them, he looked at them in surprise. When they asked him why he was surprised, he showed them his bugs, and he was further surprised when Naruto and the others began playing with the bugs instead of running away. Naruto explained that they didn't mind different people. They then managed to make him talk more often, which was a surprise even to the Aburame clan. Time skip 5 years, Mito and Naruto are 13 years old. The twins were running through dark alleys in the starry night. They were training in a training ground when they were ambushed by a mob of civilians. They managed to escape and were now racing home. They stopped to catch their breath. Naruto's mind was racing a mile a minute. Why would they chase us? We didn't do anything. Wait! They were shouting something about the Kyuubi. They are after Mito Ne-chan. A growl found its way through his throat. Not gonna happen. He looked at Mito and said, "Sorry, but it will be better this way." Before she could ask what he meant, he knocked her out. He created a shadow clone, mentally thanking Kakashi, and told it to get her home. As the clone ran off, the original made hand seals. Henge no jutsu. He muttered, and after a cloud of smoke there was his sister instead of him. The villagers caught up with him and drove him to a wall. They pinned him to the wall with knives which they stabbed into his wrists and ankles. He screamed in pain, and he was sure he would bleed out if someone wouldn't quickly arrive. And the beating began. They took turns. Some stabbed him with a knife. Some burned him with torches. Some smashed him with bats and hammers. Everyone was saying things like, "This is for my wife," or "Die Kyuubi," and the like. But he didn't care. For his sister he would endure it. After a half an hour they began to dissolve. After another 5 minutes he was found by his father. When he came he was horrified by what he found. Not an inch of his son was clean. We was covered in blood from head to toe. He quickly rushed in, panic in his voice. "Naruto! Naruto! Don't sleep. Come on, you need to keep awake. I am going to get you to a hospital." He removed the knives, grabbed his son bridal style, and raced to the hospital. When Naruto saw the hospital he passed out. Time skip, next day. He woke up but didn't open his eyes. He heard beeping. He smelled disinfection. He came to the conclusion that he was in a hospital. He slowly opened his eyes and quickly shut them when the bright white room was revealed to him. He groaned and opened them again. This time he was greeted by a hug and sobbing and a cry of, "He's awake." He finally opened his eyes and registered that the sobbing person was his sister. He lifted her chin up and said with a smile, "Don't cry, Ne-chan, tears don't suit you." He kissed the tears away, causing Mito to blush from his action, and she hugged him. He hugged back while asking his parents, "How long was I out?" He was greeted with a smile from Minato and Kushina, who was holding his other hand. "Only a day, Naruto-kun, don't worry, you didn't miss the graduation," Kushina said, knowingly relieving his worry of not being a shinobi. Minato, however, had questions for his son. "Naruto, who did this to you?" he asked with worry in his voice. Naruto looked down at his sheets, his fists grabbing them and clenching them hard. When he looked up, his blue eyes displayed rage beyond comprehension. "The villagers," he answered. His sister and parents were shocked at the rage he displayed, but also because of the answer. Minato just couldn't figure out why, so he asked, "But why would they hurt you?" Naruto looked at him, his rage forgotten, and said, "Didn't you see my henge? They were after Mito Ne-chan." "No, Naruto, I didn't see any henge on you. Your control must have slipped," Minato answered, but he still didn't know why would they attack his daughter. Naruto, seeing his father's confusion, said, "They were after Mito Ne-chan because they were shouting about the Kyuubi." Minato now understood. He was glad that he and Kushina decided to tell them about the Kyuubi when they were 10. It would have created unwanted tension right now. Fortunately, they haven't asked how children are born yet, which he was grateful for. "I'm so sorry, Naruto-ni-kun, it's all my fault. I am so sorry." She was on the edge of tears, but Naruto grabbed her by the shoulders sternly. She tensed and closed her eyes, await his hate. For a while nothing happened until she felt something on her forehead. Something soft and warm. She opened her eyes and found out that her brother kissed her forehead. He leaned back and said softly with a small smile, "Don't cry, Mito-chan, it isn't your fault. It isn't even the Kyuubi's fault. It's the villagers' fault." He hugged her at the end of his speech. After the emotional moment they settled down and played games and chatted away. Even Kakashi came to play with them for a while. Time skip, graduation. Naruto and Mito came through the classroom's door at the same time. Mito was wearing orange shorts with a bandage over her right leg with her kunai pouch. She had a black and orange jacket. Under it she had an orange t-shirt, but you couldn't see it because the jacket was zipped up. Naruto was wearing a black short-sleeved zip-up hoodie with red stripes on his sleeves. He also had a long-sleeved red shirt. He had black cargo pants. He had bandages on his chest, arms and legs, but due to his clothing you can't see it. He sat next to Sasuke with his sister. Sasuke raised an eyebrow on his small wince when he sat down on his chair. "Alright students, I see that everybody is here so we can begin the graduation exam. Iruka Amino said. He then handed out the tests to every student. Naruto, however, wasn't thinking about the test, he was thinking about the beating he took for his sister. I can't let them hurt her. But I can't take every beating. I need to protect my sister. I know. I will stop them before they can put their plans into action. He looked sideways at his sister. He pulled his hood over his head. He did that whenever he was thinking. But to know what they're planning, I need to be there. They are most likely to plan at night. Well, that means less sleep for me. But I could care less, as long as my sister is safe I will be happy. He smiled to himself, but then he frowned. But I need power if I want to take on many people at once. I may be a shinobi, but still there is going to be like 20 people at once. I can't take them on. No, I can't take them on if I hold back. If I would aim to kill, I would probably win. But even then it's still only a chance. He thought a bit more on the subject, trying to make a strategy. But he just couldn't find a way to do it. Of course, my birthday gift. He thought excitedly until he realized that he didn't know the truth. He finished the test and they were ushered outside. There they would take their taijutsu and shurikenjutsu tests. He unconsciously stood at his sister's side, his hand almost touching hers. Others noticed his change in posture but decided not to comment on it. After a few students passed their taijutsu test, his sister went next. He grabbed her hand and said, "Be careful." She nodded although she was confused. She never lost a spar, why would he be worried? He never was. The others were now on edge. Something happened. Naruto was acting differently, and with his hood it only supported the theory about something being wrong. Mito's spar went well. She even defeated Mizuki, which was not required. It was Naruto's turn now. He stood across from Mizuki. He hated Mizuki. The man hated his sister because of the Kyuubi. They just stood there, looking in each other's eyes. Mizuki's eyes held hatred, but it was nothing compared to the hatred and rage coursing through Naruto's veins. Naruto saw red, the recent events coming back to him. This was one of them. He wants to hurt his sister. Not gonna happen. Not on his watch. Naruto got out of his stance and bared his teeth at Mizuki. A year ago he finally discovered why he was always faster than his sister. He had incredible leg muscles. Even the doctors are in wonder of his legs. He trained with them this move. It was much more animalistic and truthfully, he liked it. He crouched down, his hands were on the floor between his legs. Nobody, not even him, noticed that his eyes gained a little bit of yellow around the pupil. He got ready and with a loud shriek leapt on Mizuki. He was too shocked by the sudden move and terrified by the shriek, so he didn't move, but his eyes widened considerably. Naruto landed on Mizuki, slamming him into the floor. He straddled his waist so he has less of a chance to kick him off and began punching him in the face viciously. After a few punches he noticed that Mizuki was unconscious. His eyes were now fully blue once again. He stood and looked at his hands. He was shaking, he was horrified at what he's done. He took a look around and noticed the shocked looks on all of their faces, even on Iruka's. Iruka snapped out of it and seeing Naruto's fear and nervousness decided to say, "Alright class, we will take a break and then we will continue with the spars with me as the testing teacher. You can go anywhere you want but be back in an hour." Naruto just lowered his head to hide his eyes and after shooting Iruka a grateful look he leapt out of the academy's training ground. He ignored the callings of his name and just ran. He needed to think. He looked around and noticed that his legs carried him to the top of the Hokage monument. It held the faces of all Hokages. He sat at his father's head. He always comes here when he wants to think. What was that? I swear I shrieked at him. I never did that before. And why did it feel so right? Like this was what I was supposed to do? He was brought out of his thoughts when he was hugged from behind. He tensed, not knowing who was behind him. Why did you run off, Naruto-kun? By the voice he judged it was Mito, so he relaxed. I got scared, he admitted. Of what? She asked while nuzzling his shoulder. He shivered, his sister was getting closer to him since the incident, which is saying something as it was only a week. He liked the attention that he got from his sister. He felt warm when she touched him. I got scared because I didn't know what happened and how the others would react. She sighed and said softly, "You said it yourself, we don't mind different people." He smiled and turned around. "Thanks, I needed that," he said, hugging her back. They savored the moment for a while longer until sighing and getting up. She lowered his hood. Upon his confused look she said, When you have your hood up I can't see your face. She then leaned close to him, noses almost touching, and whispered, "And what sight it is." When she said that she leaned back, put on a grin and began running forward. "Come on, I bet I can beat you in race this time." He grinned as well and replied, "Not a chance." He took off after her. He catched up to her and quickly scooped her up in his arms bridal style. He grinned down at her and said, "Let me show you what true speed means." He didn't give her a chance to speak as he took off. To him everything seemed normal, but to the civilians he looked only like a red and black blur. The more experienced shinobi noted that he ran at high chunin speed. They arrived at the academy right before the break ended. "Alright class, let's continue the exams. Next one, Shuri Kenjutsu," Iruka said after looking at the clipboard in his hand for the name of the test. Sasuke got 10 out of 10 on the kunai and 20/20 on the shurikens. Sasuke trained vigorously every day, so it wasn't that much of a surprise. But a surprise for Iruka was when all students got a perfect score. But then it came to him. They were hiding their true power. Smart for a shinobi, and he couldn't be more proud of them. Alright, now onto the last test, ninjutsu. Please everybody wait in the classroom while I test a student one by one. Naruto mentally prepared for the questions he was sure were going to come. Sakura got to go first for the test, so she was out of the questioning. Sasuke took the initiative and began asking the questions everybody had on their mind. "Naruto, what was that move with Mizuki?" Naruto scratched the back of his head and answered, "It doesn't have a name, it's just a move I can do because of my strong legs." The others were confused now. Ino, who was interested in being a medical kunoichi, asked, "What do you mean strong legs?" Naruto thought for a bit and said, "Well, I am faster than others and I can jump higher also, as To-san, Ka-san and Mito-chan can prove my kicks hurt like hell." He chuckled at the end because Mito was rubbing her stomach, probably remembering one of his kicks. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, please follow me for your test," Iruka said as he poked his head out of the doorway, letting Sakura talk to others. Naruto went after Iruka after receiving encouragements from his friends and sister. Iruka led him into a room with a single table with a chair. On the table there were several headbands of different colores. Iruka sat on the chair and asked, "Alright Naruto, could you do a henge for me?" Naruto made hand seals, and after a mutter of henge no jutsu, there was the Yondaime Hokage. Iruka smiled and shook his head. "Of course you would choose your father, you look so similar. Anyway, could you do a kawarimi?" This time Naruto didn't use hand seals, neither did he call the name of the jutsu. Naruto blurred away and in his place was Iruka. He looked around confused for a second until he smiled and switched places with Naruto while praising him for such a feat. "Nice Naruto, it's not easy switching with a person. Good work." Naruto smiled at the praise. "Okay, now for the last one, make a bunshin, any kind." Naruto smirked while crossing two one-handed ram signs. "Kage bunshin no jutsu," he called out, and another Naruto appeared in a blur instead of the usual smoke. Iruka smiled at his student and said, "Good work Naruto, you pass, you can now pick up your headband." At the end he gestured to the headbands. Naruto thought for a bit and picked up the single red headband and attached it to his neck. After an hour of talking to his friends, they finally all graduated and could go home. The sun was beginning to set now and it was getting dark. Naruto got an idea and decided to talk to his sister about when they left the academy. They said goodbyes to their friends and began their trek home. But suddenly Naruto stopped and looked at his sister. Mito looks at him confused and asks, "Why are we stopping, Naruto-kun?" Naruto raised his hood and crouched in front of her, his back to her. He looked back to her with a grin and said, "Hop on, I will get us home quickly." She smiled and got on his back, putting her arms around his neck and her legs on his stomach. He coiled his muscles and leapt on a nearby roof. His sister did the scream instead of him because she was surprised with the sudden jump. "Don't scare me like that," she said as she lightly slapped the back of his neck. He grinned sheepishly and apologized, "Sorry, I thought you were ready." Shaking her head at her brother's antics, she smiled and nuzzled his neck. He was surprised by the action, but he was even more surprised when he let out a sound that was similar to a purr. Mito giggled at him, finding it cute. He coiled his muscles again and leapt to another roof. For Mito it was beautiful. She felt so free, and the same could be said for Naruto. He hasn't done anything like this before, but he liked it a lot and swore that he would move like this more often. They finally reached an alley that was close to their home, so Naruto landed there, his strong legs softening the impact. He didn't even need to use chakra. Mito-chan, I don't want our parents to know about what I can do yet. Can you keep it a secret, please? He asked with a pleading smile. She nodded her head with a smile and lowered his hood. Fine, but you had to tell them eventually. I don't know why would you hide this ability, she said with a frown. Because it isn't mastered yet, I want to show them when I have mastered my leaping. Plus I need to pair it with some sort of weapon so it can be used on enemies to kill. She could understand that. Alright, let's go to sleep, Naruto-kun. She yawned at the end. He chuckled and they both went home. When Mito went to sleep, her last thought was, I love you, Naruto-kun. She then fell asleep, dreaming about her brother. Naruto had similar thoughts. I will not let anyone harm you, Mito-chan, even if it kills me. He then fell asleep, dreaming about his sister. What both of them failed to notice was that both of their birthday gifts softly glowed before floating over to them and sinking into them. For Naruto it sunk into his legs, and for Mito it sunk into her heart. The want to protect is a strong one. It leads many people to their demise. Another strong want is the want to hunt. A primal want that is only rarely found in a human's mind anymore. What if both of those wants combined to create a stronger creature? The birth of a hunter who protects is what would happen. It has happened only once before, but history has the tendency to repeat itself. Rays of light penetrated the window of a young boy's room and disturbed his dreaming. Naruto reached with his arms to draw the curtains, and that was his mistake. With a crash he fell from his bed to the inviting floor. He got up after cursing a little bit and went to the bathroom, all the while walking like a zombie. Let it be said, he is not a morning person. He took off his boxers and stepped into the shower. He sighed in bliss as the hot water caressed his body. He took an odorless shampoo and washed his hair. He rinsed his hair and stepped out of the shower. He wrapped a towel to his waist and got to his mirror. He began brushing his teeth, but after a while he suddenly stopped. He bared his teeth and looked at them more closely. He noticed they were sharp and pointy. He was fully awake now. His fangs were a bit bigger, but all his teeth were pointed just a bit. But the biggest shock was when he looked into his eyes. His eyes were no longer blue. They were yellow like sulfur. Now that he thought about it, he noticed that he was feeling differently. Almost like he was free. Liberated. Can I change back though? He would very much like to change back. It would be suspicious if he would look like this so suddenly. Plus he didn't know what caused this or what it provides him. He concentrated on changing back, thinking a mental command. To his surprise his eyes changed back to blue and his teeth was normal again. He also felt something on his fingers, and as he looked at them he saw his now black claws change back to standard nails. He shook his head and decided to just go with it for now. He got back to his room and dressed in his usual attire. But for some reason he felt as something is missing. His hand unconsciously threw his hood on. He was confused. The hood felt so natural and right. Even though it felt right, he still lowered the hood. Mito woke up with a start. She just spoke with the fox. And what she told her shocked her. She told her the truth behind her birthday. She didn't attack. She was controlled by Madara Uchiha. That was a scary thought. But in the end they became quick friends. She can now freely access her Yuki, and Kyuubi can feel the world with her senses. She took a shower and dressed in her daily clothes. She blushed when she was putting on her bra and stopped. Let's see if he will notice, she thought as she threw the bra away. She even decided against wrapping up her chest. She put her orange t-shirt and jacket on. She remembered that today they were going to be put on a team and maybe doing missions. That thought brought a grin to her face as she ran out the door to her room. Naruto closed the door behind him and was heading to the stairs when he heard rapid footsteps. A orange and black bullet was heading towards him. He didn't have time to do anything as his sister knocked him on his back. He groaned and opened his eyes and saw his sister was just an inch away from him. He blushed as he felt the two fleshy orbs pressed to his chest. He looked up to his sister's face and gulped. Her nice red hair, violet eyes, her cute whisker marks and her adorable blush. He stared for a bit and then snapped out of it. He cleared his throat. Mito's eyes gained their focus and she quickly got up. Sorry Naruto-kun, I wasn't paying attention. She apologized while helping him up. It's alright Mito-chan, but could you close your eyes for a minute? He asked with a sly smile. Mito was on guard because of his smile, but she smiled as well and closed her eyes. He got behind her and scooped her in his arms. He chuckled at the little eep that she made. He stared at her blushing face and whispered, "Cute." Mito blushed even more at that and snuggled into his chest, sighing in bliss. She liked being held by her brother. It made her feel warm. Even cuter, Naruto noted while carrying her downstairs. When they got to the table, they were greeted by raised eyebrows from their parents. "Good morning, Naruto-kun. Why are you carrying Mito-chan? Is she hurt?" asked Kushina worryingly. "No, Ka-san, I just decided to carry her to breakfast." Naruto answered with a smile while looking down at his sister. "You can put me down, you know," Mito said, embarrassed. "I could, but I don't want to." He grinned at her. He went to his chair and sat on it with his sister in his lap. Minato looked at the pair and his mind raced a mile a minute. They are spending even more time with each other since the incident. That in itself is an achievement. But maybe they are being a little bit too close. At the end he decided to drop it for now and keep an eye on them. Kushina had similar thoughts, but she was covering her slight blush and sheepish smile with her hand. The Uzumaki genes sure work quick with these two. I hoped they wouldn't awaken, but with Naruto saving her it couldn't be helped, I guess. She knew what was going on but decided to just watch the show. Naruto fed his sister the toast that they have for breakfast while wearing a cheeky smile. Mito was embarrassed, but she liked the attention that her brother gave her. Minato broke the comfortable silence when he spoke. "Naruto, could I talk to you privately in the evening?" The teen looked at him quizzically but nodded nonetheless. The rest of the breakfast was eaten in silence. Mito looked at the clock and told her brother, "Naruto-kun, we should go. We don't want to be late, do we?" Naruto frowned and nuzzled his head in her neck while muttering, "But I don't want to." This again prompted their parents to raise an eyebrow and for Mito to blush. Naruto breathed in his sister's scent and noticing that she smelled of ramen and foxes. He involuntarily shivered at the smell. She just smelled so good, it was awakening his wilder nature, so he quickly stopped. At the end Naruto complied and got up with his sister before setting her down on her own feet. They said goodbye to their parents and went to the academy. Mito was leaning on his shoulder and he had his left arm on her waist. To anyone who didn't know they are related, they looked like a young couple. A lot of people found it adorable, but Naruto was able to see something else. He centered his eyes to an alley to his right and spotted two people whispering to each other and gazing at them with hatred. He frowned and raised his hood. If someone would look underneath the hood, they would see that his eyes are now sulfur-like color. For Naruto, it was as if he was submerged in water his entire life and now he is on the surface. His vision brightened and the colors were more vibrant. The sounds around him were now much clearer and louder. His body felt the gentle breeze through his clothes. He could smell all kinds of things, but he noticed he could smell very far. The oranges he smelled were like 7 blocks away in the market district. He focused his newly improved hearing on the whispering pair and listened. "Look at it. The demon walks around the village like it belongs to it. And it even poisoned Naruto-sama's mind." The taller one said, with the short one agreeing with a simple nod, and then added his own idea, "We should punish the demon for its insolence." The taller one grinned. "Hell yeah, I am going to get the guys together. Meet us at the usual place at night, we will come up with something there." With that they each walked in the opposite directions. To say Naruto is pissed would be an understatement, but he knew he cannot do anything. Yet, he lowered his hood and his eyes changed back to their natural blue color. He smiled at Mito and made a shadow clone with a one-handed ram seal. The clone already knew what to do and began following the tall guy. He saw his sister raising an eyebrow at his actions and he answered the unasked question, "I sent him for an errand." He could tell his sister was still confused but didn't push it, which he was thankful for. The door to their classroom opened and Naruto with Mito came in. Iruka grinned at them and said, "Good morning, you made it just in time, although now that I think about it I probably wouldn't be able to punish you anyway." Mito and Naruto smiled at him and greeted him as well and sat next to Sasuke. Mito was between Naruto and Sasuke, who was on her left, so she can break up any friendly fights they might get in. Iruka stood up and with a smirk said, "Alright everyone, I know that you hate my lecture, so I am going to go straight to the point." Naruto stopped listening here because he got the memories of his clone. He knows where they will be scheming tonight and he was going to pay them a visit. Team 7 is composed of Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and Mito Uzumaki Namikaze under Kakashi Hatake. Insert cheering of Mito and Naruto and Sasuke's smirk. And lastly, Sakura Haruno will be trained to be a medical ninja by Tsunade Senju once she arrives back to the village. This surprised the whole class, but it did make sense. Sakura has the best chakra control out of all of them. They cheered a bit and congratulated Sakura. When they began to converse among each other along with Iruka, the door opened revealing a woman in a dress that looked like bandages and a bearded smoking man with a sash for the 12 guardians. The guy spoke first. "Hello everyone. My name is Asumaseru Tobi, Team 10 follow me." And with that he walked out of the door. Shikamaru, Choji and Ino got up and followed him. "Good morning, my name is Kurenai Yuhi, would Team 8 follow me please?" She walked out of the door with Hinata, Shino and Kiba in tow. Team 7 waited for 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 20 minutes. 1 hour. At this point Sasuke's eyes were red with 2 tomos circling around the pupil. Mito's eyes were red with a vertical slit and her whisker marks were more pronounced and her claws were digging into the desk. Naruto had his hood up and his eyes were full of sulfur. He hid his hands in his pants pockets to keep his black claws hidden, but you could hear his pointed teeth grinding. Iruka was sweating bullets. He slowly got up and as he did so 3 pairs of eyes snapped in his direction. Soon enough they had bloodthirsty grins on their faces and an insane look in their eyes. It was at this very moment that Iruka was done with his job. "Nope, nope, nope, nope." Iruka chanted in his head as he quickly shunshined out of there and causing the 3 pouncing teenagers to collide into each other. "What happened?" Sasuke asked while nursing his head. "I don't know, but I was sure that I was going to kill someone," replied Mito and helping Naruto to his feet. They were all back to their normal selves now. They sat at their desks again and played the plain old waiting game. After another hour the door finally opened. Kakashi stepped in the room only to widen his eye and duck. He looked behind him and found kunai and shuriken embedded deeply in the wall. His sweat dropped while standing up and asked, "Is this how you grade me?" Sasuke chose to speak for the group. "No, you're late. You don't want to see our greeting." And he ended it with an evil smirk that was mirrored by his teammates. "Okay, so if I want to live I should probably show up on time, nah," were Kakashi's thoughts while guiding his students to the roof. Kakashi sat down on the railing while his potential students sat in front of him. Mito in the middle and Naruto to the left of her with Sasuke being to her right. "Alright, so first we are going to introduce ourselves, you know, likes, dislikes, that sort of thing," Kakashi said with an eye smile while withdrawing his book from his pouch. "Kakashi ni, why don't you start? Me and brother know you but Sasuke doesn't," suggested Mito. Kakashi shut his book and said, "Fine, my name is Kakashi Hatake, I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes. Dreams for the future. I have lots of hobbies." The 3 sweat dropped with Naruto asking, "Didn't he say the same to us when we asked like 8 years ago?" Sasuke's sweat dropped even more while Mito answered, "I think so." Kakashi gave himself a mental pat on the back for remembering his introduction for so long. "Alright, next up the orange addict," he said while gesturing to Mito and secretly enjoying the look of outrage on the teen's face. She crossed her arms over her chest, making it more prominent thanks to not wearing a bra. Naruto blushes at that and looks away. "What the hell is wrong with me? She is my sister." Mito saw his blush and mentally smiled while thinking, step 1 complete. She wanted to engage step 2 but she cannot do that with people around them. "My name is Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, I like ramen, my parents and friends and Naruto-kun. I dislike when I am not close to my brother and the time it takes to make ramen. My hobby is gardening and my dream for the future." Looks at Naruto and winks at him. "I am going to keep that to myself for now." All of them were surprised at the ending of her speech but decided not to comment. "I have heard that they have gotten closer since the beating, but how close are they?" Kakashi thought while mentally noting to keep an eye on them. "Alright, now the brooder," Kakashi said with an eye smile while looking at Sasuke. He was not amused and it showed in the form of a scowl. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like my friends and tomatoes. I dislike Pocky and I hate my brother. My dream. No, my ambition is to find Itachi Uchiha and get answers." He seemed thoughtful when telling his dream like he wasn't sure. Naruto and Mito along with Kakashi smiled. Naruto and Mito because they were able to bring him out of his revenge, and Kakashi because he was proud of his pseudo-siblings. "Okay, now the hoodie," he said while pointing at Naruto, but this time there wasn't a reaction to his naming. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I like my friends, parents, the color red, and Mito-chan. I dislike when someone wants to hurt my friends, especially my sister. I have 2 dreams that I will not tell you." He finished with a smirk, making the others faceplant. "Yep, they are siblings all right," thought Kakashi and Sasuke while picking themselves from the floor. Anyway, you are not my students yet. You have to pass a test that the leading Junin gives you, that means me. And let me tell you that it's not easy. I had a team 3 times and they all failed. Anyway, meet me at training ground 3 at 8 in the morning and don't be late." He finished with an eye smile and shunshined out of there before his students could do bodily harm on him. The teens chatted for a while and then went home together, as Sasuke's home was close to the Uzumaki Namikaze house. "What do you think of Kakashi?" Naruto asked Sasuke as they were near a crossroad where they would split. "I can tell he is going to be interesting. But I am more worried about the test." Naruto nodded while Mito spoke. "Don't worry about it, we will come up with something tomorrow." "Anyway, bye Sasuke, see you tomorrow." Naruto nodded while waving a goodbye to his friend, Sasuke returning with a raised hand while walking away. When Sasuke walked away, Mito leaned on Naruto's shoulder again and Naruto put his hand on her waist as they walked home together. They opened the front door shouting a greeting to their parents and them returning it. They had a quiet dinner with Mito in Naruto's lap again. When they finished their dinner and the siblings were going for the stairs, Minato told Naruto to stay here. Naruto was confused but complied and Mito went upstairs. Naruto sat on the couch while Minato sat in his armchair. "So, what did you want to talk about?" Naruto asked, not knowing what was this about. Minato sighed and said, "I have news about the people that have attacked you." Naruto's eyes briefly showed rage and hatred before going back to normal. "What are the news, if I may ask?" he inquired while leaning forward. Minato was hesitant to tell him because he saw what his eyes held for a second. In the end he sighed and replied, "The news are that we don't have any leads and the investigation of the crime scene didn't reveal anything. Sorry, but they got away with it." This time Naruto leaned back and went silent. Minato was worried but decided to let his son straighten his thoughts. "They got away with it, huh? But they plan another attack tonight. I cannot change the past, but I can definitely affect the future." With that decision he stood up with a sad sigh and smiled at his father. But still, thanks for the effort to-san." Minato was relieved and smiled at him also while nodding his head. "Can I go now? I want to get some shut-eye for the test tomorrow." Naruto asked. "Yes you can, but Naruto, remember to look underneath the underneath." He winked at the end while walking away. Naruto was confused but in the end decided to not dwell on it. He got into his room and was going into the bathroom, but then he stopped and his eyes widened and he facepalmed. "Idiot, those guys are planning an attack at Mito, I cannot sleep now." With that in thought he opened the window to his room and jumped on the outside windowsill. He closed the window and raised his hood. He closed his eyes and he felt his nails lengthen and get a different texture. He ran his tongue across his teeth, finding out they were pointy and very sharp. He snapped his eyes open, revealing 2 sulfur orbs. With that he crouched and leapt on another building without using any chakra, just his own leg strength. "This is insane. I can leap even further and faster. If I would add chakra into the leap it could be a very good surprise finishing move. But I may actually not even need to add chakra," he thought while leaping from building to building, getting closer to the place that his clone found out. He got to the place. He was crouched on a building opposite of the one they had the meeting. He leapt at the windowsill and closed his eyes, focusing on his hearing. "Alright, everybody knows the plan, now to just execute it. Let's go." That statement was followed by cheering. Naruto could make out 6 voices. The front door opened, which was right under him. The people poured out with katanas and kunai pouches, however they didn't have any masks or anything to conceal their identity. He waited until all of them were in the alley, and while doing so he noticed that there was only one exit and it was a fairly wide alley. Lots of room for maneuvering. Maybe I can even pull off a leap. As he finished his thought, all the people were outside. He took out a kunai and dropped behind the last one while sinking his kunai in his skull. He slowly stood up, his face being obscured because he has his head tilted down. The others quickly whipped around and unsheathed their katanas. "Who the hell are you?" the closest to him questioned. Naruto looked up, revealing his whiskered face and sulfur eyes. This shocked the others. "Naruto-sama? What are you doing? We were going to free you from the demon." Naruto snarled, revealing his sharp white teeth, and growled out, "You will not touch a hair on my sister." This shocked them even further, if it was even possible. "Sorry Naruto-sama, but we have to free Konoha from the demon even if it means killing you." With that being said, they charged forward. Naruto appeared calm on the outside, but on the inside he was sweating bullets. "Not good, not good, there are too many of them." The first one got to him and slashed horizontally. Naruto rolled behind him and tried to stab him with his kunai that he got from his pouch, only to sidestep into the alley's wall. 3 guys attempted to stab him at once, only for him to jump above them and land at the same place he was at the beginning. "Shit, I take it back, there is not enough space. Wait, I got it. Either this will work or I am dead," he grimly thought while getting a kunai out of his pouch. He crouched, and he leapt with a screech at the one in the back that was close to the exit of the alley. He landed on him and straddled his chest while sinking his kunai in his throat. The others were terrified, and he used that to his advantage. He quickly leapt at the next one, killing him instantly with another kunai in the middle of the forehead. The third one snapped out of his shock and charged him. Naruto rolled behind him when he attempted to chop his head off and stabbed him in the spine. In the corner of his eye he noticed movement and used the corpse to block the attack. His katana got stuck in his comrade's body, and before he could remove it he had a kunai in his right eye. The last one dropped his weapon and looked at the carnage. Naruto did the same and was quickly beginning to be disgusted by himself before he saw the guy that he pounced on first. Blood was pouring out of his neck, and to Naruto it looked so inviting. It looked so delicious. He wanted a taste. He turned back at the last one. A fresh taste. He grinned wickedly at him. He backed up in the wall. Naruto walked towards him slowly while sniffing the blood around him. He finally got to him. He tried to stab him with a knife he hid behind his back, only for Naruto to backhand the weapon away and grab his neck. He leaned towards his neck and took a deep breath. He shivered from the smell, and not being able to control himself anymore tore his neck apart with his claws and sinking his teeth in his neck. The last thing he saw before dying was a sulfur-colored eye paired with a crimson one and a sinister grin. Naruto just finished feasting on his neck and regained control of himself. He looked behind him, seeing all the carnage that he caused. "It was to protect my sister," he said to himself, but as he looked at the guy lying at his feet he realized that it was also his own desire to hunt and feast on his prey. And the taste of the blood was so intoxicating, and the flesh tasted even better than ramen. "Wait, flesh?" he thought to himself as he looked back at the one he feasted on and saw that he didn't just drink his blood but also ate half of his neck. But he wasn't disgusted. But he also knows that he needs to control this new urge to hunt, kill and feast. "I'll deal with it if the urge comes again," he thought to himself. In the end he called it a day and leapt on a building. He stopped himself from leaping to another building as he smelled blood on himself. His sweat dropped. Yeah, Naruto, go home with bloody clothes, get questioned, get found out, go to a prison, brilliant plan, he thought to himself sarcastically. He leapt in the direction of the nearest forest. He found a clearing with trees around it, 3 stumps and a river. He stripped and jumped into the water. He reversed himself back to his normal state and picked his clothes and began washing them. After a few minutes of washing he gave up because he could still smell the blood from them. He only got his boxers and burned the rest with a minor Kaiden jutsu that Sasuke taught him. He got home and leapt at his windowsill. He opened the window and got inside. It was dark, but he still found his bed. He laid on it and covered himself with his blanket. He began to drift off when 2 arms wrapped around his torso from behind and 2 fleshy orbs pressed into his back. He began to panic on the inside. I am inside Mito-chan's room. And I am sleeping with her. Although, I admit that I wouldn't mind sleeping like this every night. It's so relaxing. I love her. But does she love me as well? I will enjoy it while it lasts. And with that he fell asleep in the arms of the girl he loves more than anything. It is often said that a wolf is a solitary creature. But it is not always true. Wolves have packs. And the alpha has a mate. Every alpha needs a mate. But sometimes the mate gets the alpha. A wolf and a fox. Or is it foxes? Only time will tell. It always does. And I will be watching, because I have all the time and all the space. What is a desire? It is simply a want, but much, much stronger. An urge is that nagging want to do something. Desires and urges are one of the most powerful things in the world. It destroyed countless people and empowered even more. Which one will it be? Only time will tell. It always does. I can wait. It was a sunny morning in Konohagakure. Birds were chirping, shops were opening and restaurants began cooking, and soon the air was filled with beautiful smells of different foods. People were in the process of waking up and getting ready for the day. Animals playing with their children and preparing for hunting and scavenging. The shinobi and kunoichi were getting ready to protect their village and help it prosper. Everything was all right, except for one panicking blonde. How do I get out of this? Naruto mentally screamed as he was lying in front of his sister with his back to her and her arms around his stomach. Luckily Mito was still asleep, but she did have a small peaceful smile. That smile made him pause for a bit and just admire it. She looks so innocent and cute, and pretty. He blushed at his last thought and shook his head. He began to look around the room to find something to substitute with. He sighed once he found out there were no items for a substitution. Looks like I will have to do it the old-fashioned way. He mused as he slowly untangled himself from his sister's gentle yet tight grip. As he got out of the bed he noticed that his sister stirred and was probably waking up. He quickly but silently dashed to the window and using the windowsill got to his own room. That was close. Mito woke up with her arms searching for something that is not there. She sat up and rubbed her eyes, after that she stretched and yawned cutely. As she was getting out of bed she noticed that the bed was warmer than usual. She took a deep breath through her nose and noticed a smell that doesn't belong to her. This made her confused, so she empowered her senses with Kyuubi's chakra and found out it was smelling slightly of washed blood and forest. This made her eyes go wide, but then she calmed down realizing that that smell belonged to her brother. She stopped using Kyuubi's chakra, but then she froze. Why does my brother smell like blood? Did something happen to him? She panicked and quickly dressed, without a bra, and jumped out of the window to her windowsill. She looked inside his room and found him dressing up for the day. He already had his boxers on and he was facing away from her, but she could still see his slightly muscular back and legs, with his arms being just as muscular. He was built like an athlete, more for speed but still having enough power. She blushed seeing him almost naked, but she was relieved that he was all right. But again that made her question why he smelled like blood, but in the end she dismissed it. They were now having breakfast with Mito in Naruto's lap again and Naruto feeding her the soup they had. Naruto-kun, why aren't you eating? Kushina questioned her son with a worried expression on her face. Naruto scratched the back of his head while having a sheepish smile. Sorry Ka-chan, I am not hungry. I promise I will grab a snack with me, okay? He answered and asked his mom. Okay honey, she said, relieved that there was nothing wrong with her son. Suddenly an Anbu with long purple hair shunshined into the room. Naruto backflipped with Mito in his arms, and when he landed he shoved her behind him and took out a kunai. Everyone raised an eyebrow on his actions. Minato decided to ask the question everyone wanted to ask him. Naruto, you know this is one of our Anbu, right? Naruto looked more closely at the Anbu and then sheathed his kunai while scratching his head and chuckling nervously. Well, what would you do when someone with a mask shunshines right next to you? Everyone had to admit that he had a point. Minato shook his head with a smile saying, true. He then turned to his Anbu and motioned to his Anbu to continue. Sir, today we found 6 dead bodies in an alley not too far from here. It also appears to be done by shinobi and then mauled by an animal. They were all shocked by this information. Naruto was sweating on the inside but kept a calm facade. Shit, this is so not good. I did not think that the Anbu would be investigating this. Whatever, they don't have any evidence. I hope, he mentally said to himself while calming down. Minato went into Hokage mode. Alright, I want your squad to investigate this Neko. I am counting on you. The now named Neko bowed and shunshined out of the house. Naruto looked at the clock and said to Mito, Mito-chan, we should go or we will be late. Wait. I forgot we have Kakashi as our sensei. Well, we have a lot of time then. Mito's sweat dropped at that. Yeah, let's go for a walk Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and went out the door with Mito in tow. Once they got a few blocks from their house, Naruto placed his left hand on her waist while walking and Mito leaned into him. "So Mito-chan, where do you want to go?" Naruto asked after a few minutes of aimless wandering. She looked cutely at him and asked, "Can we go to the Hokage monument?" He blushed at how cute and pretty she looked and, not trusting his voice, just nodded. As they continued, Mito remembered the talk she had with Kyuubi last night. She blushed at the memory. She was given the talk by her as she knew of her growing feelings for her twin. How do I tell him that I love him more than a sister should? And what if he doesn't love me back? I will drop hints and let's see if he will notice, were her thoughts as they walked to the fort's head. Naruto watched her blush and then have a gloomy aura around her, and then he saw a deep determination in her eyes. What's that about? I will ask once we get there, we have an hour left anyway. He thought as they sat down on their father's head. This time they sat separately. Naruto turns to her and asks, "Mito-chan, what were you thinking about?" Mito thinks for a while and then takes a deep breath and turns to him. Seeing his bright blue innocent eyes, it made her breath hitch in her throat. Not trusting her words, she leaned on his side and muttered a soft, "Nothing." Naruto was a bit skeptical but let it go this time. They stayed like that for almost an hour, him just sitting there and she was nuzzling against his side. They felt warm and safe in each other's presence. But everything good will eventually end as they had to be at the team meeting. They separated and got up. He suddenly looked to his right at the sun and his eyes widened. "Mito-chan, we should go, otherwise we will be late and Kakashi would never forget that," he said with a panicked tone. Mito soon caught on what he was implying and her eyes widened and began panicking as well. Oh my god, he would tease us to oblivion. And with that they both dashed into the forest into the direction of the training ground they were supposed to meet at, hoping that Kakashi was not there yet. They heaved a sigh of relief once they got there and saw only Sasuke leaning on one of the 3 wooden stumps. Wait, 3 wooden stumps? Oh no, please don't be. Naruto panicked as he looked around and sure enough he saw a river and a forest. This is not good. Kakashi has a good nose. He might found out, plus I didn't exactly hide my tracks. He was sweating internally as he found out this was the place that he washed himself and burned his blood-soaked clothing. He calmed down and walked alongside Mito to Sasuke. "Good morning, Sasuke," they both said at the same time when they got to him. Sasuke's sweat dropped at that and replied, "Good morning to you as well." Mito sat down in front of the middle stump and Naruto sat on top of the left and Sasuke remained on the right. Soon enough there was a puff of smoke and from there Kakashi materialized. "Yo," he greeted with an eye smile and a raised hand. This got the others to sweat drop and mutter a quiet, "You're late." Kakashi blinked owlishly and asked, "Didn't I tell you to be here at 11 a.m.? Mito couldn't stand it and shouted, "God damn it Kakashi, you said 9 a.m. Kakashi chuckled nervously while scratching the back of his head with a sheepish eye smile. "Did I? Sorry for that, I meant 11 a.m. Well, anyway we will be doing an exercise where you 3 will try to take these 2 bells from me." He gestured to the bells attached to his belt. "And the one who doesn't get a bell will be sent back to the academy." He smiled at the end. This piece of information stunned the genin as they thought they were already a team, but the gears in their heads were turning and soon they knew the true meaning of the exercise. It wasn't hard to figure out if you knew Kakashi Hatake. He is known for preferring his comrades above all else, so he devised a plan to make them work against each other. "But you forgot who you were dealing with," were the thoughts of the 3 genin. "You have 3 hours to complete the objective. This exercise starts now." Kakashi yells at them. They jumped into the forest and talked a bit to decide which spot to go to that they could regroup at, and after agreeing with a position took off on their own to scout the surroundings and report to the place in an hour. The training ground was quite large, especially the forest part. Naruto was jumping silently from tree to tree, but he soon caught a whiff of a scent that made him stop and his mouth water. His eyes became the same color of sulfur, teeth became pointy and sharp along with his claws. "Well, I promised Ka-san I would eat. I didn't say what though." He changed his course to the source of the beautiful and alluring smell. When he finally got there he found a dead boar killed by a wolf who was currently munching on his kill. His right eye changed to a red color, signifying his hunger for flesh and blood. He jumped down next to the wolf. He growled at it and the wolf returned the gesture. He was crouched, ready to pounce, and his opponent was ready to do the same. He was not deterred and growled even more fiercely while standing to a hunched form. The beast in front of him whimpered and backed off before making a run for it. It knew it was outclassed. This predator was stronger than him. Naruto grinned in victory and kneeled in front of the boar before he sank his teeth into its flesh. To others it would have been disgusting, but for him it was ecstasy. The blood was the best drink he ever tasted and the meat was better than any ramen he ever ate. When he had his fill and snapped out of his trance, there was only a half of the boar left. He breathed deeply, enjoying the smell of blood and death. He shook his head free of such thoughts and began making his way through the treetops to their meeting spot until he suddenly stopped on a branch. Damn it, now I have blood all over my mouth and torso. I'll wash my mouth, but what about the clothes? He wondered for a little bit before an idea struck him and a mischievous smile bloomed on his bloody face. Screw washing my face, this is much better. With his new plan he continued in his jumping, but not before using a henge to cover the blood, for now. They all got there at the same time, which surprised the three, but they soon shook it off. Sasuke took the initiative and began his report. All right. I scouted the west part of the forest and I found nothing that we could use, but it's a good area for an ambush. Lots of dense trees. The twins nodded at that and Mito continued. I went to the east, but there was nothing interesting and it's not good for us as there are much less trees. Kakashi-sensei will spot us from a mile away. Naruto cleared his throat and began. Well, I was going to the south until I encountered a wolf and decided to not go there, but if we need reinforcements then we could possibly track the wolf back to his den and use the wolves there on Kakashi-sensei. Interesting idea, Naruto, but it would take too much time. Let's stick to the west, near the river. One of us will lead him there and we will ambush him along with traps. Mito nodded enthusiastically. Then what are we waiting for, Databane? She blushed in embarrassment at her tick's appearance while the boys chuckled. I have a plan and it will be wicked, Naruto said with a vicious grin. Sasuke didn't like that grin one bit but still caved in. Mito, however, loved that grin and quickly nodded. After a bit of planning they set off to do their part. Kakashi, you think you are the hunter here? Hehe, we will see, were the thoughts of Naruto as he got to his spot to wait for his opportunity. He waited as he watched their sensei stroll casually into the clearing beside the river. Suddenly the air was filled with shuriken and kunais courtesy of Mito's shadow clones. The Junin lowered the book he was reading just enough to see his eyes. You could see boredom as he gazed at the projectiles. As they were about to hit him he disappeared in a burst of speed. The three looked up to see Kakashi in the air, putting his book in his pouch. That might have worked on a genin, but what about a Junin? He questioned as he landed in the middle of all the weapons. He probably wanted to taunt us more but decided to duck instead, and good thing he did because a kick from Sasuke missed him by an inch. His single eye narrowed. Fast, was his thought as he and Sasuke engaged in taijutsu. Lesson number 1. Taijutsu. Kakashi turned around with a sweeping kick that surprised Sasuke and managed to land him on his back. Kakashi made a handstand and brought his heel onto Sasuke's stomach. Sasuke, seeing the move, rolled out of the way while standing up, Kakashi doing the same. They eyed each other for a while until they both closed their eyes. A leaf was falling in the middle of them. It landed. Both of their eyes snapped open, Sasuke's revealing his two-tomo Sharingan and Kakashi's revealing focus. They met in the middle, both began with a right hook and both caught it. Their arms were shaking and they were glaring at each other. Suddenly Kakashi saw a kunai coming at him from the right. He quickly stopped his struggle and pulled Sasuke to him. But he was prepared. He jumped and kicked the kunai in the air. Sasuke jumped a fair distance away, his job done. Kakashi was confused until he looked at the kunai in the air. There was a person there but he couldn't know who because of the sun behind them. He sidestepped just as Mito was plunging her kunai down on him. My turn, Databane, she yelled as she charged Kakashi, who couldn't help but sweat drop. She tried crouching low with a sweeping kick but Kakashi only jumped to the side and went for his own kick. She rolled away and attempted a roundhouse kick but Kakashi only leaned back and went to punch her. This exchange went for a while until Naruto spotted Sasuke giving him the signal to begin while making hand seals. Mito jumped to the tree line just as the world around Kakashi was drained of color. He looked around already knowing it's a genjutsu, but as he turned around he saw Naruto standing there with his hood on and his head tilted down. He could see blood dripping from his fingers, no claws. As his eyes went up they widened. Naruto's torso was covered in blood and so was his chin. Naruto looked slightly up, showing him his sulfur eyes and a psychotic grin that dripped of blood. "What's wrong, sensei? Something the matter?" he asked before throwing his head back and laughing maniacally. Kakashi was terrified of what became of his student, genjutsu completely forgotten. Naruto crouched and then leapt at him with a shriek. At this point Kakashi passed out from terror. When he woke up the first thing he noticed was that he was tied to something. As he regained his senses and looked around he noticed he was tied to the middle wooden stump. He sweat dropped while thinking, that was my plan. He mentally pouted and sulked until the sound of a throat being cleared caught his attention. He looked up and found Team 7 looking down at him. Sasuke with hands in his pockets, Mito grinning cheekily with her hands behind her back and Naruto smirking with his arms folded. Mito decided to break the silence. "So sensei, do we pass? We showed our abilities and teamwork," Mito said cheekily, already knowing they passed. Kakashi eyes smiled and spoke, "Yes you pass, but could someone please tell me why Naruto is covered in blood?" I already guessed the demonic appearance was the genjutsu. Naruto, already having thought about his answer, told him, "Well, when I was scouting my area I came across a dead boar and a wolf and after I chased the wolf out of there I decided to use a scare tactic on you using the boar's blood. And I think it worked," he cheekily added as an afterthought. Kakashi slumped knowing he shouldn't have fallen for that but he had a comeback. "It did work but no you have bloody clothes and you will have a lot of explaining to do at home." He eyes smiled. Naruto paled before composing himself and made a quick decision. He threw away his hoodie and t-shirt into a pile and burning it with a fire jutsu. Out of the corner of his eye he idly noticed his sister blushing with a bit of blood coming out of her nose before she quickly wiped it off. Strange, he thought as he grinned victoriously at Kakashi. His eye smile however only widened. "Now you have to explain why you are half naked." Naruto slumped while muttering, "God damn it." After everyone's chuckles ended Kakashi was set free. He stood before them and said, "From now on we are Team 7, but remember, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are lower than scum." The three were awed by not only what was said but that Kakashi showed them a bit of just who he is. His eyes spoke of wisdom but also hurt. Seeing this they firmly nodded, agreeing with him wholeheartedly. "Itachi, I will bring you back," Sasuke thought with conviction. "Naruto-kun, I will show you what you mean to me, soon," were the thoughts of Mito as she was filled with confidence to do what she wanted and not what was right. "Nobody will harm you Mito-chan, and if anyone tries, they would find themselves stripped of their flesh," Naruto thought while grinning viciously. Kakashi gave himself a mental pat on the back for inspiring his students, although he was slightly worried because of Naruto's grin. "I don't know what he is thinking but I bet it isn't anything pretty. Well as long as he doesn't start killing villagers then we are good," Kakashi thought jokingly unknowing that his student has already done so. He cleared his throat, effectively bringing them out of their thoughts, and began speaking, "We will meet here tomorrow morning and train for a bit and then we will get a mission." "Sounds good? Good cuz I gotta go. Bye." And with that he shunshined to who knows where. They just stared awkwardly at the spot their sensei used to be before regaining their composure. "So, want to cause massive chaos?" Naruto asked with a mischievous grin. The two sweat dropped, looked at each other then shrugged their shoulders before nodding with a smile. "What happens when you leave three teenagers alone for a few hours?" Complete mayhem. Currently the three members of Team 7 were running from Anbu. "Why?" "Well I think that painting the Hokage monument and then dyeing the underwear of all Hyugas would grant you an instant chase with the elite teams of Anbu." Team 7 was racing across the rooftops, the Anbu just a step behind them. "Stop you brats," yelled a frustrated Anbu member as he failed to catch Naruto, again. The three laughed as they responded at the same time, "Not a chance." After a few minutes several teams of Anbu managed to corner them in an alley. "Oh," were the thoughts of the genin as they pressed their backs to the wall behind them. Suddenly Naruto came forward and asked politely, "What about a spar?" Without giving them time to respond he quickly stepped into the Anbu's guard and kicked the first one into the shin making him jump around. The second one got tripped by the blonde and the third one got a smoke bomb to the face. "Come on," urged Naruto as he ran away. Mito and Sasuke came over their shock and ran after him, the smoke bomb covering their route. Now that was fun, admitted Sasuke as he lied down between on the fourth Hokage's locks with his teammates. A giggle was the response he got from Mito and a smirk from Naruto, who said, "See, the world isn't entirely bad. For every bad memory you have to forge 10 happy ones." Sasuke mulled it over before a smile slowly overtook his face and he gently admitted, "Yeah, you're right. I'm still getting Itachi though." That got a giggle out of the only girl on the team and a chuckle out of the blonde. They watched the sunset while standing up. Mito in the middle with her hands on her hips. Naruto on her right with his arms crossed and Sasuke on the left with his left hand on his hip. Then they all took a deep breath before shouting, "Watch out world, because Team 7 has been formed." They then jumped of the monument head first. Everyone in the vicinity looked up for the ones shouting and found Team 7 free falling. Just before they hit the ground they did a flip and landed in a kneel, Sasuke and Mito requiring chakra to soften the landing while Naruto had his absurdly strong legs. After that little show they bid their farewell to Sasuke before Mito leaned on her brother and he placed his hand on his sister's hip. "I wonder what mission we will be doing tomorrow. Do you have any ideas, Naruto-kun?" she asked while looking at him with her big and innocent eyes. He fought down a blush while answering, "Probably a chore for the villagers that are too lazy to do anything themselves, so don't get exited." He saw her adopt a disappointed expression so he kissed her forehead and said with a grin, "Don't worry though, I bet we can make it fun nonetheless." She seemed to cheer up at that and hugged him tighter while nuzzling into his chest. Naruto smiled to himself. "This is why I want to be a monster, so I can protect you. No one will hurt you. No one will ever taint you. I want you to remain innocent a little more. If it means destroying my humanity, so be it." He thought with conviction and will of steel. Mito was also thinking but on a completely different matter. How do I tell him that I love him? It's not like I can just come up to him and tell him. I know he sees me as more than a sister even if subconsciously. I guess I will just have to wait for the right opportunity and until then drop hints I guess. I just want to cuddle with him and hold him. He is so kind and brave too. I want him and only him. Unknown to her or Naruto, a slightly dark smile plastered itself onto her face. Or I could just show him. He was always a bit dense. Maybe if I would just force him to hear me out. Yeah, that could work. But when and where and most importantly how? She continued to ponder on that question, ignorant of its dark nature. Naruto idly noticed that the sun has already set and it was dark. He quickened his pace along with Mito. The blonde pulled his hood up and his eyes went yellow. He could hear the slight shuffles of feet an alley away and the breathing of humans and their heartbeats. He even caught glimpses of them with his enhanced eyes. His eyes narrowed and he began thinking, "I bet they are after Mito. They are not going to attack us here. That would cause too much ruckus. We just need to get to the house." With that he quickened his pace even more. Mito was confused but didn't complain as the dark alleys creeped her out. And it looked like her brother was worried. He was casting glances everywhere. She leaned into his ear and whispered, "What's wrong?" Naruto turned to her, making sure she couldn't see his eyes, and replied in the same tone, "People are following us. But don't worry, they wouldn't dare to attack us. After all, we are shinobi." He was not sure if he was reassuring his sister or himself, but it didn't work for him. Suddenly he stopped. Mito was about to question him but then she realized that there was complete silence. The sun may be gone but families shouldn't be sleeping yet, unless, genjutsu. These guys are shinobi too. She wanted to tell her brother but before she could she was separated from him by a kunai she had to dodge. They quickly regrouped back to back. Suddenly 12 shinobi appeared, circling them. The siblings were nervous as they knew nothing of their enemy, only that they were all male and with black Enbu outfits and completely white masks. One of them stepped forward and spoke, "Naruto-sama, please let us kill the demon. Please don't interfere, otherwise we will be forced to kill you too." He spoke a bit regretfully about killing Naruto but sounded hateful when talking about Mito. This angered Naruto so much he growled, "If you want to hurt my sister, you will have to get past me," he said while taking out a kunai, Mito following. The figure sighed before apologizing and all of them blurred into motion. Fast were the thoughts of the two teenagers before they had to block their kunai. They both pushed their enemy away and took a quick look around and found that the others are watching from a distance. The twins nodded to each other and blurred in front of their attackers. Naruto went for a kick to the head, but his enemy ducked and tried sweeping Naruto's feet. He however flipped over him and kicked him in the back, sending him sprawling. He quickly got up and charged at Naruto with a kunai. Naruto used his kunai to block his while kicking him in the stomach. He bent forward and grabbed his stomach. That was his mistake, as the last thing he saw was a flash of steel before Naruto's kunai pierced his eye, killing him instantly. He looked back and saw that Mito had dispatched her attacker as well. They didn't have time to regroup as all of them charged at them at once. 5 went after Naruto and 5 after Mito. Then it escalated into total chaos. Mito nor Naruto could form any strategy, they couldn't fall back, couldn't regroup, they could just defend and counter. Soon they both came to the realization that this was probably their end. Naruto had several cuts on his arms and a few kunai lodged in his back. Mito was faring better thanks to Kyuubi healing her, but she was exhausted. They were both breathing hard and their opponents were just as good as new. Another flash of movement from everyone, and when they reappeared, one of the attackers flew back with a kunai in his forehead. Mito was relieved when she saw her brother had no new injuries, but soon became horrified when he fell onto his back, revealing a kunai lodged in his heart. Tears streamed down her face as she ran to him and kneeled next to him. She held his face, but it was cold. His sulfur eyes were unresponsive and staring into nothingness while glazed over. No, no, no. No, not like this. Those bastards. They killed him. I'm gonna rip them to shreds. She subconsciously absorbed a bit of Kyuubi's chakra. She looked up, revealing crimson eyes with slit pupils. Her canines were longer, her nails grew into white claws and her whisker marks thickened. She roared, sending the opposing shinobi flying into the walls. 2 died from the force. She got on all fours above Naruto and snarled viciously. They were frightened right now, afraid of her, scared their lives may end by her hand. She wasted no time and in a blur of speed decapitated the closest one with a clean swipe of her claws. As she turned around, she noticed her kills getting away. She blurred away with a bloodthirsty grin. A shriek of pain, a hand sailing through the air. A swipe, the scream ended. 6 left, cries for help, cut off by his crushed windpipe. 5 left, a horrified expression on a face. Without a body. 4 left, a clawed hand, a torso, heart, squeeze. 3 left, guts shown freely to the world. Blood everywhere. 2 left, hand, neck, lift, snap. 1 left, swipe, screams, no hands, snarl, ripping, no legs, cries for mercy, malicious grin, neck, teeth, gurgles, death, everyone, dead. The powerful chakra dissipated. She fell on her front. She crawled up to her brother. She stared into his eyes. She leaned down. A gasp interrupted her attempt at a kiss as he began gasping for air while sitting up. She almost had a heart attack but quickly began assessing the damage he took. She reached for the kunais in his back, but he grabbed her hand while shaking his head not to. He got up with her help and took a look around. His sulfur eyes widened as he took in the carnage. Limbs and blood everywhere. It made him hungry. He turned to Mito and said with a teasing smile, "Well, if you did that, then you won't mind this, will you?" He walked over to a corpse and began eating its arm. Mito was shocked and disgusted but soon got used to it. He is still my brother, she thought. She was then surprised when the kunais in his back were pushed out of his body, followed by steam. He stood up and turned to her and grinned widely, showing his bloody teeth, while rubbing the back of his head. "I know it might be disgusting, but I can't help it, plus it healed me." She walked up to him and took out a napkin and wiped his mouth and chin of the blood. "Maybe a little, but I am just glad that you are alive," she said as she hugged him while smiling. Naruto looked around once more and sweat dropped. So much for maintaining her innocent the first guess. They walked home with small smiles on their faces, not knowing that this is just the beginning. I thought the story would end here. Pages would forever remain untouched. But their end is nowhere near. The Book of Life has recorded but a page of their story. And with new paths revealed. The next page will be much more interesting. Show me. If you can do what I could not. Love is something I treasured. Yet mine was never returned. A blade was enough to ensure that. Naruto, protect her. I count on you. Use the gift I gave you. Use my past to make your future. Naruto and Mito were walking home, holding hands, like it was a casual stroll. And for them it was. Of course not everyone liked blood and gore. Naruto couldn't help but glance hungrily at his sister who had blood on her beautiful body. He blushed at that thought as weird images of them hugging while being naked, and kissing. He shook his head frantically. Get your shit together, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. She is your sister. He reprimanded himself in his thoughts. Meanwhile his sister wasn't faring much better. She was blushing as well because of Kyuubi's teasing. Come on now, you could just drag him into an alley and show him how much you love him. Mito nearly gave in to her melodic and enchanting voice but resisted in the end. No, Kyuubi-chan, I will wait. I'll go slow on him so that I don't scare him away. Kyuubi sighed but agreed in the end. They just got to their house and Naruto went to open the front door when he was stopped by Mito. He turned to her with a confused look and she frowned and asked, "Do you think coming in there like this is a good idea?" Naruto blushed in embarrassment while scratching his cheek and chuckled sheepishly. Well, where should we go then? Let's go to my room, Mito suggested, hoping to snuggle up to Naruto tonight and show him more affection. You sure? Naruto asked, uncertain. Silently his other side eagerly agreed with his sister. Fine. He finally gave in. His other side cheered, not that he could actually see it or hear it. Kyuubi also raised an eyebrow at such a bold move but decided not to comment. They sneaked behind the house into the backyard and Naruto leapt to the windowsill with Mito on his back. He opened the window and jumped to the floor. Mito got off of him and took a shower. She then began looking into her closet for her nightly clothes. However, she suddenly stopped while looking at a shirt and smirked slyly. Oh, he will notice my body now, she thought as she stripped out of her shorts and jacket and replacing her orange shirt for a longer one that stopped in the middle of her thighs. She wanted to turn around but found out she couldn't. Naruto's arms were wrapped around her stomach as he was hugging her from behind. He inhaled her scent and took great pleasure that it was still mixed with blood, although she just showered his nose could still smell it. His other side wanted to do much more than just hugging but the human side of him didn't know anything about these things as he was sick when they were discussing them in the academy. She could feel her cheeks burn but soon her brother released her and she turned around to meet his sheepish eyes. Sorry, I don't know what I was doing. He apologized, but Mito wasn't having any of it. She walked in front of him and Naruto expected to get a bonk to the head but instead she hugged him. If you want to get more physical with me, then all you need to do is ask, she said huskily to him, right into his ear. Naruto shivered, the tone itself was enough but her hot breath on his skin just sent him into cloud nine. What the hell? She is my sister. How is she doing this to me? He silently questioned himself as his sister unzipped his jacket. She stopped. He was puzzled but then he felt something move in his chest. The kunai, he shouted in his head, alarmed. Mito just smiled at him and removed it gently. He hissed in pain but remained motionless. When she took it out she licked the blade clean. This sent shivers down Naruto's spine. She finally got him out of his hoodie and removed his shirt as well. She then guided him to her bed, silently. She knew she couldn't make him hers but she wanted to be close to him. He was a bit freaked out but complied and soon they were snuggling into each other. Before they fell asleep they shared a single thought with smiles on their faces. I love you. Next morning, Naruto woke up, without opening his eyes, from a pleasant dream of him and Mito kissing. It was weird as she is his sister but he secretly enjoyed it. He did not see it as wrong, but as a consequence he cannot see anything as right, for him only his wants matter. And his deepest want is his sister. Mito had similar thoughts running through her head, but she was thinking more about a way for him to notice her love for him without being blunt with him. Then again, we are speaking about Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the most dense person in the village. Only younger Toussaint could hope to compete with him. But that is what I like about him, I suppose. Naruto slowly opened his eyes and found out that his sister was laying on his right side, snuggling into him contently. Cute, was his thought before he shook her gently to wake her up. Mito-chan, come on, we have team practice in an hour, or 4. He finished with a sweat drop with Mito joining. They dressed and took a separate shower, with Naruto having to climb to his room for new clothes. They were now walking down the stairs, holding hands, with smiles on their faces. They sat down with Mito being in Naruto's lap yet again. This no longer surprised their parents. They ate in silence, but every silence will be broken, no matter what. An Anbu shunshined into the room, right next to Naruto. To his credit, he didn't even flinch. He couldn't describe it, but he somehow felt her coming. Maybe it was his instincts getting even sharper. The Anbu bowed to the older blonde and spoke, "Lord Hokage, we have found 12 bodies on the main street this morning." It appeared they had ninja training. But they were, well, slaughtered. Blood and gore everywhere. Also, we have discovered something unsettling. Kyuubi's chakra. Everybody's eyes widened. Minato and Kushina's from surprise and horror, and Naruto with Mito's from panic. Mito instantly stood up and got behind the now standing Naruto. He took a defensive stance with a kunai raised. "Stand down," shouted the now standing Minato, while Kushina got up as well. "Now tell me what happened last night." His tone was firm and demanding, but not without a hint of worry. Mito chose to answer as she stepped up to her brother's side. "We were going home after spending some time with Sasuke, and while walking on the road we got hit with a sound negating genjutsu. Then 12 shinobi appeared and surrounded us. We fought them for a while, but..." She had tears streaming down her cheeks at this point, remembering the limp body of her brother. Naruto's eyes softened as he hugged her while rubbing her back in circles to comfort her while finishing the tale. "In the last exchange I got hit with a kunai, in the heart. Mito-chan thought I was dead and she went on a rampage. If I was stronger she wouldn't have had to do that." He finished in a self-loathing tone that saddened everyone there, except Mito. That enraged her. How dare he call himself weak? She shouted in her head as she roughly grabbed him by his hoodie and said fiercely, "You are not weak. You are strong, stronger than me and Sasuke combined." Naruto was shocked, but soon a smile blossomed on his face as he kissed her on the cheek while muttering a soft, "Thank you." She was blushing but had the strength to mutter back, "No problem." Minato just nodded, accepting the story, and said with a smile, "Then it's settled." It was self-defense. The Anbu nodded, "I'll file it then." And with that she shunshined out of there. It looked like everything was alright again, but Kushina still had a question. Wait, if Naruto got a kunai in his heart, how is he here? There was genuine curiosity in her voice. The twins just looked at each other and shrugged simultaneously, making the parents' sweat drop. "Alright then, you should probably go because Kakashi-kun will be at the training grounds in half an hour." As soon as she said that, the kids left a dust trail as they sped through the streets. They arrived at the training ground and flopped on their asses, panting. Sasuke raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Suddenly there was a whirlwind of leaves and Kakashi appeared in all his glory, with porn in hand. "Yo," he greeted with an eye smile and raised hand. The other's sweat dropped but greeted him back. After the pleasantries were over, Kakashi snapped his book shut and said, "Alright, I want everyone to state what you know about your skills, strengths, weaknesses, jutsus, all of it. Don't leave us in the dark, because it could cause injury of our teammates, or worse, death." The genin were a bit scared, especially Naruto, who had a dangerous secret. But still chose not to tell. He wouldn't be using that anyway, he hoped. "Okay, who wants to start? No one? Okay, then I will start." This caused his students' faces to go blank for a while. Wow, didn't even give us a chance, were their thoughts. "I am a lightning chakra type, but I can use all chakra natures. My own jutsu is called Reikuri, and it is a condensed ball of lightning that I use to pierce my enemies while running at them at high speeds. My specialty is my Sharingan," he said while touching his headband on the eye. This surprised Sasuke a lot but decided not to pry. He then motioned to Sasuke. "I don't know my chakra nature, but I would say fire. I know 2 fire jutsus and I am proficient in taijutsu, but my genjutsu is lacking." It was brief but still impressive for a genin. Kakashi nodded and looked at Mito expectantly. "I don't know my chakra nature and my only other jutsu is shadow clone jutsu. I am quite strong in taijutsu as well, but my genjutsu is abysmal," she admitted with a sheepish smile. All of them knew it was because of her large reserves of chakra. "I also don't know my chakra nature. I know the shadow clones as well, but I can't quite spam them like Mito-chan can. I would say my taijutsu is the strongest out of us. My genjutsu is also non-existent." Alright, so the first thing to do is chakra control, it seems. Psy kids these days, always about the boom and not about controlling the explosion. I was like that once too, never again. He though and vowed at the same time. His team saw the look of disappointment and then determination, confusing them, but they shrugged it off. This man was Kakashi Hitaki after all. Alright then, we will be climbing trees until noon and then get a mission. Sounds good? The team nodded and began to walk off towards the trees before stopping and turning to Kakashi slowly. Sasuke was the first to ask, Kakashi, how are we supposed to climb the trees again? This got Kakashi to blink and then jump a bit. Ah, right, well, you use chakra of course. He supplied them with his trademark eye smile. Team 7 faceplanted before getting up while the gears in their heads were turning. Climb the tree with chakra. Wait, isn't that the same as walking on a wall? I saw shinobi walking on the walls before, of course. They used chakra to stick to the surface. Naruto deducted and turned around to tell his team only to get knowing looks. They all grinned, Sasuke smirked, and ran for the trees, wanting to master this first. Kakashi leaned on the middle stump and smiled. This is a good team. I can feel that they will make a difference in the elemental nations. They might be able to do what every single Kage secretly wants but doesn't show because they fear the other's opinion. Ironic, they want peace yet the fear to say it. He hid his further thoughts by showing his face and his beloved porn. The three were panting by now. Sasuke had chakra for only one more run and the twins were getting tired as well. On a silent signal all of them raced to their own trees and began running up on them. Their control was slipping as they got closer to the top but they held on stubbornly. They got up there in the exact same time and laughed. That however didn't last long when Sasuke passed out from chakra exhaustion and began to fall, head first. Kakashi saw this as his eye widened but he wasn't fast enough, however he didn't need to be. Naruto's eyes took on a sulfur color as he leapt after Sasuke, grabbing him midair while twisting his body. He landed on his back and he swore he heard a crack. He groaned as he opened his blue eyes and sat up while laying Sasuke down. He rubbed his back while wincing. But soon he heard another crack that made him cry out. But it didn't hurt anymore. I love my new healing. He commented silently. The others rushed to them. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Mito asked frantically. Naruto just smiled at her reassuringly and got up without a problem. I'm fine. See, he said while twirling around and giving a small jump, making Mito giggle. Their playful banter was interrupted by a cough. Well, I am glad Naruto is alright. But I am afraid I will have to drop Sasuke at a hospital to get him running again. I think you may have gone overboard. He finished thoughtfully. You think? Was the sarcastic remark they had in their heads as Kakashi shunshined to the hospital. I bet he will just read his porn after dropping Sasuke at their doorstep. Mito couldn't help but comment. Naruto laughed while saying, true. They sat under a tree, leaning on each other while sleeping peacefully. They were rudely awakened by a kunai heading straight for them but before it could hit both of them snapped their eyes open and jumped to the side while taking a kunai out. Not bad. A lazy voice drawled as they turned around and found Kakashi standing there with Sasuke, who was smirking. Now that you have taken a nap and Sasuke is ready to go, I would say that we should get our first mission. Agreed? Alright, follow me, my cute students. And with that dashed away. The three were stunned for a while but then they grinned and raced after their teacher, eager to be there first. Needless to say, that did not happen. Outrunning a Junin is much harder than they thought. When they thought they got him he just sped up. Not even Naruto was able to catch up, but he didn't use that so there is still a chance. The fourth Hokage was sitting comfortably at his chair, smiling at Team 7 but as soon as the pleasantries were over he went into Hokage mode. Kakashi, I am afraid that your first mission is going to be in the field. I cannot spare any Chunin or Junin. Do you think they can handle a C rank straight of the bat? Well, they are strong overall. Their only weakness is Genjutsu and even then it isn't that much used. Why not? Kakashi nodded and answered, I believe they are ready for the mission, sir. Minato smiled and waved with his hand, giving a silent signal to open the door. This is Tazuna, your client. Your mission is to get him into the land of waves and wait until he finishes a bridge there. Simple really. In came an older man with a straw hat and he was clearly tipsy, judging by his slight sway and the bottle of sake in his right hand. These brats are supposed to protect me? Tisk, the emo looks like he will cut himself soon. The princess here probably thinks that the world is hers and this blonde will run at the first sight of trouble. He was quickly proven wrong when Naruto rushed him, slammed him into the wall and raised him of the ground by his throat. We are more than capable of protecting an old drunk. And insult my sister again and I am breaking the mission contract just so I can kill you." His eyes flashed sulfur to further deliver the message. It worked. Alright, sorry." Naruto released him and dusted him off while handing him back his bottle with an overly cheery smile, apology accepted. Kakashi cleared his throat to give them orders, "Meet us at 6 a.m. sharp at the gates." And with a final eye smile he disappeared and leaves. Sasuke just sighed and said, "Be there at 9. And walked out. The two siblings were ready to go as well but Minato stopped them with a cough. They turned around and noticed his serious gaze. "Mito, Naruto, I want you to stay here for a while, please." It was spoken softly yet sternly. They obeyed and turned to face their father. Mito gulped and asked, "Well, what is it Toussaint?" Minato sighed. "Well, you said you killed those guys yesterday, so I want to ask if you haven't killed those guys as well." When he finished he presented them with a photo of Naruto's killing spree the other day. Naruto laughed sheepishly and replied, "Well, that might have been me." "What?" both father and sister questioned, more like screamed. Naruto flinched but then his eyes gained unbelievable amounts of rage and hatred that made them flinch back. "I did this to protect Mito-chan. And I will do it again if need be." The ferocity in his voice made them stop but they were confused. "Protect me?" asked shyly Mito while blushing. "Those monsters wanted you dead just because of the Kyuubi, I could not let that be." Minato knew he should throw his son into jail but if what he was saying was true then he will let it slide. For now, and forever. "Fine, Naruto, I am giving you permission, not as Hokage but as your father, that you can kill anyone who wished to harm your sister." This honestly shocked Naruto and Mito but they soon grinned and hugged their dad while cheering. Minato laughed with them but he still had a warning for Naruto, "But remember that if there will be evidence you did it, or if anyone saw you, I will have to throw you into jail." Naruto gulped with fear but still nodded. "Now go, you have the rest of the day off. Enjoy yourselves." He ushered them out with a smile. They were hungry so they were on their way to eat Shiraku's ramen for lunch but Naruto's hearing caught some unfriendly banter. He smiled at Mito mischievously and raised his hood. He looked at her with one sulfur eye and winked. Mito giggled and let him do his brotherly protecting. "Are you crazy?" He caught 4 people arguing in an alley as they sneaked glances at the pair. "Did you not hear what happened to the last ones that went after her? They were absolutely slaughtered." The other 3 paid him no mind as they were making a plan. He silently eavesdropped as long as he could and he heard all the information he needed. "This night huh? They probably heard we have a mission tomorrow. Looks like I'm getting a little bit less sleep tonight." A bloodthirsty grin soon overcame his face as he thought of the ways he could hunt down his prey. One by one. Instill fear into them. And then feast on their flesh. "Beautiful. I know of someone who's even more beautiful," he thought dreamily as he stared a bit at his sister, who was leaning onto him as was their custom now. He had a more open mind about his attraction for his sister. He just hoped she felt the same way. He lowered his hood showing sapphire blue eyes to the world. He then leaned close to Mito and whispered into her ear, "There will be an attack tonight. I will deal with them and then I am going to come to sleep with you. Is that okay?" Mito shuddered at his hot breath tickling her ear and she nodded, not trusting her voice. Naruto smiled and continued walking to get lunch. Naruto lifted the cloth hanging from the stand for him and Mito to sit on the stools. And as soon as they did so an elderly voice called out, "Just a minute please." There was some clanking and soon an old man with a hat got out. And as soon as he saw the twins a smile appeared on his face. "Hey kiddos, what can I cook for you today?" Naruto grinned and slapped a lot of cash on the counter, "Everything." The elder's eyes bulged out of his sockets before rapidly nodding with dollar signs in his eyes. He instantly got to work on his biggest ramen serving in the history. But he still managed to chat with the two. "So what have you been doing as a ninja?" Mito smirked and puffed out her chest proudly. "We have a C rank tomorrow, without needing to do any D ranks, it's apparently because there are not enough people. Then I hope you will have a safe journey, wouldn't like if one of you got hurt, or worse." He finished with a sad and somber tone. Naruto just grinned and waved him off. "Ma, don't be like that old man. It's just a simple escort. Maybe there will be bandits but that will be fine." "I sure hope so." They were chatting with Tucci some more while eating their several dozens of ramen bowls but it was getting dark so they bid their goodbyes and went home. But before they reached the door, Naruto stopped Mito and smiled at her. "Mito-chan, I want you to tell Ka-san what happened and what is going to happen tonight, alright?" She nodded with a smile and walked through the door. Naruto's smile turned into a wicked grin as soon as she closed the door, and his eyes hardened and gained the fiery and dangerous emotions of rage and hatred. If someone would see him now, they would think he is insane. And he might as well be. He wouldn't care. He walked around the now empty streets with his hood up and his eyes were the color of sulfur. After 2 hours of searching, he decided to call it quits and return home. Perhaps they changed their mind. He thought dismissively as he walked home through the forest that surrounded it. Ah! A scream made him look up sharply. His ears focused on further sounds and his eyes trained for enemies. Wait, that sounded like Mito. He forgot his ninja training, he forgot who he was, he forgot where he was. Only thing he knew is that his sister is in danger. He ran out of the forest into their plain garden that was just a grass plain. There were 8 people there. One of them had Mito in his grasp and the others stood before and around him. In front of them was Kushina, who couldn't do anything because of the kunai near her daughter's neck. They however didn't know about him as they had their backs to him. "We are going to kill this demon slowly and painfully, but before that, what do you say we have some fun first?" He emphasized his meaning by licking Mito's cheek and fondling her. She was openly crying now. Everyone stopped as they heard an almost demonic shriek. They turned around only to see a streak fly straight for their leader and the demon. Naruto landed on the guy and straddled his waist as he shrieked in his face with his elongated and sharp teeth along with his now 2 red eyes. He then proceeded to rip him apart with his claws. He ripped his stomach open and teared up his intestines while eating them. The screams were music to his ears. Then he gorged himself with his neck. He looked up with blood-stained clothes and arms with a bloody snarl, his crimson eyes, the color of blood, glaring at the 7 remaining people. He stood up but remained hunched over. He was growling deeply and snarling at them threateningly. Mito joined with her mom while hugging her and staring at Naruto with her. She didn't recognize him. Her brother showed his liking of eating people, but he had yellow eyes with warmth for her. Now, there was only rage, hatred and insatiable hunger. She watched along with her mom as he shrieked and jumped on the next one, who was trying to run away. He tore at him in the same fashion as the first guy. The remaining 7 seemed ready to fight as unsheathed their katanas and kunais. But Naruto didn't care. They swung at him with their weapons and they stabbed him, but he didn't care. He just shrugged them off and continued killing them. One by one they all fell until one remained. They stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Only one woman with short brown hair and gray eyes survived. At a silent signal they both sprinted at each other. She screamed with anger and swung her katana down. He shrieked as he poised his claw at her neck. They each swung as they passed each other and now they were standing back to back. Both hunched over. A gurgle came from the woman as blood sprayed from her sliced neck. She fell down on her face, never to rise again. A grunt came from Naruto as blood poured from the slash that began at his right shoulder and ended at his left side. He fell down and heard his sister and mother call his name in panic. He closed his eyes and let the darkness claim him. Mito is safe, was his last thought before he lost consciousness. You did well, Naruto. But this is only the beginning. Only another page in your book. Will your story have a continuation or will it end abruptly like many before? We will see. You have the right motivation for going on. You have someone to come home to. You have friends, family. Cherish these people. For they could disappear just as suddenly as your enemies. Trust me. The power I gave you is dangerous to even your loved ones. You will have to find out. Just like I did a long time ago. Time and time again. Only faces and powers were different. The screams were the same. The blood of my friends dripped from my hands, never to stop. The first thing his body registered was the steady beeping sound of a heartbeat monitor. Next he was assaulted by the smell of sterility. He noticed through his skin that his clothes were no longer on him. Instead they were replaced for shorts and a blanket. His mouth was dry and his stomach empty. He finally dared to open his eyes, only to shut them closed the same instant when the white ceiling attacked him viciously with its malicious white color. This time he opened them slowly, giving them time to adjust to the bright white room. I am in a hospital, great. He groaned in despair. He hated hospitals, they were so strict and clean. It made him sick sometimes, making him stay longer ironically enough. He heard a shuffle and a moan from his left, and as he looked there he saw his sister and mother raising their heads in unison from the bed. They both yawned at the same time and looked around with half-lidded eyes. They looked like twins, only his mother was the older version. She also wore red knee-long shorts along with a blue t-shirt. "Naruto-kun," they both chorused as they hugged him. "We were so worried about you," they said at the same time, again. Naruto just chuckled sheepishly and hugged them back as he comforted them. "No need to worry, I am fine, as good as new." He noted with relief that it indeed did comfort them. They sat back with Naruto laying down, still feeling slightly tired. "So does Toussaint know what I did yet?" His question was answered by the reed heads by shaking their heads at the same time, again. It was quite cute really. "Minato-kun hasn't been at home since yesterday because he has a lot of work lately." Kushina elaborated more on the issue. At this Naruto heaved a sigh of relief. Even though his dad saw the murders Naruto committed, he still thought that an animal has done the eating. "I am so glad you are safe, the both of you." He smiled faintly but genuinely. His mom smirked and said, "You did a good job on them, Naruto-kun. And you made a good show out of it, it was beautiful." This surprised Naruto and Mito. "So, the enjoyment of seeing blood runs in the family?" Mito asked while climbing into the bed with Naruto, laying next to him, blushing slightly. Kushina chuckled and responded, "I guess you could say that. There is also another thing that the Uzumaki keep hidden, but I think I will keep that to myself for now." At this the kids pouted but didn't press the matter. They talked for a little while, mostly about Naruto's and Mito's bloodshed and his powers, but then he remembered something. "Hey Ka-chan, do we still have that mission to wave?" Kushina nodded and thought for a little bit with her cheeks puffed out cutely and then snapped her fingers. "Yeah you do, but it was moved to noon, which is about an hour from now. And don't worry, I have already packed everything for you in sealing scrolls," she said as she held up 2 scrolls. "Thanks." The kids cheered and hugged their mother. "Alright, enough of that. The doctor said you could go as soon as you wake up, so you are free to go and I have to go as well. I have a mission as well, first since you were born actually, because of the lack of people. Stay safe and return whole." And with a wink she disappeared in a cloud of smoke. The twins grinned at each other before jumping out of bed. Naruto got dressed in his usual clothes, and they jumped out of the window, not caring about checking out from the hospital. Mito had to use chakra to cushion the impact, but Naruto's almost inhuman legs withstood the impact easily. They arrived at the gates with 10 minutes to spare after they had lunch at Ichiraku's and noticed Sasuke leaning on the side of the big wall surrounding Konoha. "Hey," they both greeted him as they jogged closer. He merely opened his eyes, looked at them with a faint smile and grunted before dozing off again. They sweat dropped at that and decided to let him be for now. After 10 minutes their client appeared, although he was slightly uneasy with his steps indicating he was at least tipsy. This theory was further supported by the half-empty sake bottle in his hand. Kakashi showed shortly after, only 5 minutes late, but then again he said to be here at 6 and then it probably got pushed to 9 so he would arrive at noon. Maybe it was a bit complicated but it worked. Of course he had his porn out and he read merrily even as he ignored them and walked out of the gates. Not even a greeting? The young genin were upset about that and sprinted to him, each giving him a bonk on the head. After a small beating and a lecture they set off. "Is your sensei always like this?" asked Tazuna with a hint of irritation while looking at the completely relaxed and world-ignorant Kakashi as he giggled perversely every now and then. "Pretty much, yeah." The team deadpanned and Tazune couldn't help but sweat drop. They were walking for a few hours now. An hour or so and the sun will begin to set. They held a diamond formation with Naruto in front, Mito to the left, Sasuke to the right and Kakashi bringing up the rear with Tazuna in the middle, happily jugging down his sake. The 4 ninja briefly glanced at a puddle on the side of the road as they were walking. Even Tazuna raised an eyebrow at the puddle. What the hell? It didn't rain in days. How is there a puddle? Needless to say that the ninja weren't surprised when 2 people emerged from the puddle, which was a genjutsu. They had breathers on their face and slashed kirigakure headbands. One had a horn in the middle of his headband and had a gauntlet with a spiked chain on his right hand, and the second had horns on the side of his headband and had the same gauntlet on his left hand. The chain connected the 2 gauntlets, creating a powerful if difficult weapon. They however were surprised when they wrapped a spiked chain around Kakashi and ripped him to pieces. They all gasped and then were filled with rage. "I'll kill you," shouted Naruto as he ran at them, Sasuke on his heels, Mito staying to protect the client. "I got him," said the one with two horns and ran at Naruto while the other one went against Sasuke. Naruto was fuming but still had blue eyes as he leaned backwards, letting a kick sail past. He pushed forward and grabbed him by his shirt and gave him a headbutt that made his opponent dizzy. He didn't give him chance to recover as he punched him in the stomach, making him kneel over. "Watch out," he heard Sasuke cry out and just barely avoided the swipe of the other one, getting away with a small cut. They then sprinted at him at their true speed, which surprised all of them, intent on wrapping him up in chains, and they did. Sasuke and Mito stared in horror as they tugged at the chain. But nothing happened besides a grunt from Naruto. He had his eyes closed in intense pain and he was gritting his teeth, but he held on. He felt power build within him and with a shriek he broke the chain. However, he was weak after that and fell over unconscious. This shocked their two assailants, but they still charged forward, but Sasuke was quicker. He threw a shuriken which pinned their chain to a tree, forcing them to unhook their chain from their gauntlets. But before they could make a step, their eyes rolled to the back of their head and they fell onto the road, face first. Behind them was Kakashi, who was scratching his head with a sheepish eye smile. "Sorry I didn't intervene, I thought you had it. And you did, mostly." He corrected himself as he saw the severely cut form of his blonde student. He checked him over and found out that his wounds stopped bleeding and were healing already. "Uzumaki's," he thought with an amused shake of his head. With that he ordered Mito to carry him and continued reading his porn without a care in the world while walking. Mito didn't really mind as she created a clone to carry him. As she did that, she grinned perversely in realization on the implications of shadow clones in certain situations. Me and a few clones, taking care of our dear brother. Oh yes, even Kyuubi had to admit that this jutsu was very awesome, if only she could get out of here. Wait, that could work. She then proceeded to tell her jailer about her crazy but plausible idea about escaping her cage. In the end, Mito agreed to try it, but under one condition. "Alright, we will try it, but if it will work you will have to help me with Naruto-kun." She was grinning at the idea of getting help. In the end they sealed the deal and agreed to try it when they will get back. "Su Tazuna, care to tell me why there are ninjas after you?" asked Kakashi out of the blue and nonchalantly, like he was talking about the weather. Tazuna stiffened and everyone stopped walking and stared at him suspiciously. Tazuna sighed and began his tale of tyranny from Gato. "Well, by standard protocol we should head back, but I am not that keen on rules. So do you want to continue even though there are probably going to be Junin-level shinobi ahead?" Kakashi asked with anticipation. "Show me what you are made of." He mentally challenged his team. "Hell yeah," came the energetic response from Mito as she pumped her fist into the air while grinning broadly. "Why not?" said Sasuke with a small smirk with crossed arms. Kakashi smiled his trademark eye smile while nodding approvingly. "Well, since Naruto is knocked out I vote for him and I say that we should continue." Tazuna thanked them for their kindness and they were on their way again. They stopped at a river where a shady-looking guy was waiting for them with a boat. He was casting cautious glances everywhere, obviously scared. "Let's go before they found us," he whispered to them fiercely, making them step into the boat faster. Mito dispelled her clone, letting Naruto sleep with his head on her lap while gently stroking his head. "You are so reckless, I swear it's going to get you killed one day." "Sigh, but I guess that's what I like about you. That and your smile that could lift any dark cloud, your confidence that burns away anxiety like thousands of suns. Your blonde locks a beacon for those in need of a friend. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and I hope to show it to you soon. Very soon. And believe me, you will enjoy it." She finished her thoughts with a perverted smile and a nosebleed, before wiping the blood away and composing herself. Naruto opened his eyes to find Mito leaning over him with a warm smile on her face. The sunset was behind her, basking her in its eternal beauty, making her look even prettier. "Am I dead? I swear I can see an angel," he said with a smile while cupping his sister's blushing cheek and caressing it gently. Mito giggled and shook her head at his idiocy. "No, you are still alive. But make me worry again and I will make you wish for a swift death." Her threat was betrayed by her soft eyes. She couldn't live without him and he was close to dying, again. Naruto just smiled reassuringly and chuckled. Don't worry, I don't plan on dying yet. Not until you became Hokage. And my mate. Wait, what? Where did that came from? He finished in his head, making himself confused and a little bit startled. He sat up beside Mito and observed his surroundings while enjoying the slight bobbing of the boat. They arrived at the other end of the river where a dense fog was present and climbed of the boat, quickly ushered by the boatman. Geez, he was tense. Naruto couldn't help but comment as they took the same diamond formation, but not without a warning. Kakashi, if you bail on us again I will roast you for dinner. Threatened the Uchiha with his two Tomo Sharingan spinning menacingly. Kakashi gulped with sweat pouring down his eye while nodding frantically. He knew he could take them down easily, but he didn't want to wake up in flames in the middle of the night. I'll be a good boy. He reassured them, although he felt like he just stole someone else's line. The team shared suspicious glances but nodded nonetheless. As they walked they noticed the fog was getting denser. Now they didn't know anything about how a fog acts, but they figured that a fog would be denser near water, not on land. Whether their theory was right or wrong, it didn't matter. Naruto suddenly looked up just in time to see a giant sword spinning straight at his neck. He didn't have time to dodge. His irises got agitated by sulfur and his skin pierced by claws as his gums produced sharp teeth. Time slowed down as the blade spun closer. His eyes narrowed. He grabbed the handle. His team could only stare at him as he stood there with the giant sword on his shoulder. Impressive kid, but I am afraid that's my blade, said a man, sitting in a tree, with bandages covering his face, similar to Kakashi, and camo pants with no shirt and arm warmers. Naruto shifted his blue-eyed gaze to him and smirked. Come and get it, he taunted with a grin. The mysterious man chuckled and then disappeared from view, shocking the genin, and appeared behind Naruto. He kicked him in the back and recovered his dropped sword before disappearing again just as Kunai flew to his previous location. He showed himself to be standing on a lake, making a weird variation of a ram sign. Hidden mist jutsu, he called out as the fog around them condensed to the point of not seeing past your own nose. They were all tense and they had a reason. Kakashi's Sharingan was blazing. Not a good sign. Listen, this is Zabuza Momochi of Kirigakure, well now he is a missing nin. He specializes in silent killing. You will be dead before you'll hear anything. Be on your guard. Go all out. That is an order. His genin nodded with confidence, Naruto with a slight grin as he activated his primal mode, as he decided to call it. No one will be able to see me, plus this Zabuza will come after me for sure. Get revenge for even touching his legendary blade, he thought as he got into a loose stance. He closed his eyes and gave trust to his enhanced ears. Nothing, silence, wind. There, he snapped his eyes open and he backflipped over a giant sword. As soon as he landed he raised his arms to block a kick that sent him tumbling for a few feet. He just went with the momentum and rolled to his feet. His eyes widened yet again as he heard Kunai closing in on his position. He wasted no time in rolling to the left, where a Zanbato was waiting. It descended on him and he saw his life flash before him. But the flashes suddenly ended. Clang! Zanbato met Kunai. Kakashi stood before him locking blades with the Kiri shinobi. Zabuza was too shocked to react when the silver-haired ex-Anbu tripped him, making him fall forward. He soon felt a kunai in his back, and dissolved into water. What? A water cloak? He was interrupted as he had to dodge his opponent's giant meat cleaver. He utilized his true speed to flicker to his exposed left side and kicked him onto the lake, himself following. They glared at each other for a while, daring the other to make the first move. Not being the patient man, Zabuza began making hand seals, Kakashi copying them. Sweden. Water Dragon Jutsu. They chorused as two dragons formed behind them, roared and charged at their target. They collided and cancelled each other out. Before the missing nin had a chance to plan his next move, he was forced on the defensive as a fireball flew at him. He dodged it easily, but he saw a glint in the sky. He looked up to discover Mito descending at him with a kunai raised above her head. He let her fall and dodged at the last second and went for a punch, but it was blocked by Kakashi. Fuck, he swore as he backed off. This went south so fast. He was thinking while standing on the water passively. Time to get serious. I don't have much chakra after that water dragon. Damn it, I'll have to capture one. And he knew which one. He flashed to Kakashi and kicked him away from the still submerged Mito. Why is this water so heavy? She wondered when emerging from the water only to find Zabuza there, doing hand seals. Sweden. Water prison jutsu. He said the name of the technique as a ball of water appeared around Mito, trapping her. Naruto growled from the shore as he saw his sister get captured. Mito-chan. Rage began welling inside him and he was ready to go primal mode on the eyebrowless freak. But a hand on his shoulder stopped him. He looked behind him to see Sasuke shaking his head in negative. Leave it to Kakashi, he's a Junin. We don't stand a chance. It hurt his pride to say it, but he had to, otherwise Naruto would charge in. Zabuza created 7 clones, one taking his place at the water prison. Kakashi of the Sharingan, you're as good as the bingo book says. But what about your students? Zabuza thought while sending 6 Mizu Bunshins at the 2 remaining brats. Naruto and Sasuke got ready for a fight as the clones got closer. I have a plan. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, silently asking what it is. Dispatch the clones, they are weaker than the original, and meet me on the shoreline with a fireball ready. Sasuke smirked and nodded. They separated and divided the clones evenly. Sasuke jumped over the horizontal slash of the first clone while firing a fireball at the clone below him, turning it into steam. He landed into a roll, avoiding an earth-splintering sword strike and launched a kunai at the second clone. He merely sidestepped the projectile before rushing at him along with his copy. Sasuke took out a kunai and rolled under the first clone's slash and blocking the second one. His guard buckled as the weight of the sword bared down at him along with the clone's strength. He sidestepped, letting the clone stumble forward, colliding with the other one, and was about to throw his kunai when the stumbling clone managed a backwards kick to his wrist, making him lose his kunai. He wasn't deterred and quickly made hand seals before the doppelgangers could separate. Kaden. Great fireball. As soon as the words left his mouth, a fireball followed. It engulfed them, dispelling them. The blonde stood before the 3 clones, analyzing them, searching for a weakness. He didn't have the time to do that as all 3 clones charged at him at the same time. Seeing that everyone was fighting, he decided he could go all out. He grinned in bloodlust as the familiar power surged through his veins, changing him into a predator. His clawed hands twitched, waiting to touch living flesh. His eyes flickered to the clones, sending them a hungry look. He licked his sharp teeth as he charged recklessly. He charged right in front of them and the clones grinned in victory as one sliced from the left, one from the right and one slashed from above. Naruto's grin just widened before he disappeared and reappeared behind the middle clone, tearing into his back, making him dispel. The 2 clones gulped and exchanged determined nods before charging, completely focused. Naruto was furious. He didn't see blood, just some water. He growled in anger as he charged at the remaining 2, hoping for blood. His mind, clouded in bloodlust, could not comprehend that water clones don't have blood. The first clone slashed horizontally and to their surprise he slid under the blade on his knees with his torso leaned back. He slashed the inner thigh of the clone, turning it into a puddle. He was beyond pissed off now. No blood. What the hell? I want blood. And I always get what I want. His crazed mind was able to think only this much as he pounced at the last one with a shriek of rage. The clone was petrified by fear and did not defend itself from the blonde as he tore into it, but it turned into water again, further fueling Naruto's rage and thus coloring his right eye crimson. Seeing that Sasuke was done, he snapped out of it, regaining his sapphire eyes, and they both ran to the shoreline. They met and he turned to Sasuke. Nodding to him, he began making hand seals, Sasuke following, having an idea of what was about to happen. Kaden. Great fireball. Sasuke called out, a fireball launching behind his words. Fuuten. Great breakthrough. Naruto yelled as a strong wind left his lungs. Collaboration jutsu. Widespread fire. The 2 boys yelled as their jutsu collided. Sasuke's fireball fused with Naruto's wind jutsu, making it a dozen feet wide with a few feet of height. They marveled at the jutsu they had just created as it went to serve punishment to those who angered its creators. Kakashi was just getting up from the water that he fell into after receiving a strong axe kick, when he heard their shout. He turned around and found a wall of flame coming at them all and quickly dived in the water again, suddenly taking liking to it. Zabuza looked behind him only to see an inferno heading towards him. Hell no. He shouted in his head as he cut the chakra from his legs, making him fall into the water, but not before getting first-degree burns. There was no water prison in sight and either was Mito. The boys began to worry when Mito emerged, gasping for breath before she swam to the shore where the two boys checked if she was alright. Zabuza and Kakashi emerged, the missing nin panting from the pain and exhaustion. Before any of them could do anything, Zabuza was hit by a senbon in the neck, making him fall face first into the water. Before he could drown, a hunter nin flickered into view with a Kiri mask and grabbed him. "Thank you for weakening him for me, Kakashi of the Sharingan. I have been hunting him for a while now. I will now dispose of the body. Have a good day." And with that he shunshined away. Huh? Kakashi was able to get out in his confusion, but he shrugged, pulled out his book while covering his Sharingan and walked to the shore. "Well, that takes care of that. Let's go." The students were baffled by his casualness of the situation, but then again this was Kakashi Hitaki they're talking about. But before he could make another step he fell over unconscious. This prompted Team 7 to sweat drop. Naruto sighed and swung him onto his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. This time they decided to go with a triangle formation, with Naruto on the front, the raven-haired genin on the left and the Jinchuriku to the right. Tazuna in the middle of them. What was that jutsu anyway? Tell me, questioned Mito while jumping around the two boys with inexhaustible energy, a grin on her face. Sasuke chuckled alongside Naruto at her enthusiasm before answering. It was a hasty, half-baked jutsu based on letting Naruto's jutsu boost my great fireball. But because he chose a jutsu that is mostly used as a widespread attack, it resulted in this jutsu. I must admit that it was quite good, even though we didn't have enough chakra to make it hot enough to kill. Plus we didn't want to roast you as well. For Sasuke that was a lot of words. He may have changed but he still preferred using less words. Cool, but Naruto-kun, what was the just you used? I didn't see you use it before. There was a hint of sadness in her voice and Naruto flinched heavily at it, although nobody noticed. Naruto hugged her with one arm and rubbed her back as he talked to her ear, making her shiver in pleasure of her brother's closeness. I am very sorry, sister. I didn't want to tell you because it wasn't finished. And it's a beginner technique in Fuuten. It's called Great Breakthrough and as Sasuke said, it pushes wind from your lunes in a large area in front of the user, pushing enemies back or damaging them via obstacles. There are more uses but those are just clever ways to utilize the jutsu. Mito seemed to accept the apology as she kissed him on the cheek with a cheeky smile before resuming walking. The kiss made Naruto blush. They walked for quite a bit of time and when they arrived in the village it was already night. The sight of the village was not pretty at all. The buildings were frail and most had boarded windows and people constantly looked fearfully at every shadow. Tazuna's expression showed sadness and grief but also determination to make it better. Sasuke had a stone face but his eyes betrayed his determination to save these people, for them to not suffer anymore. Mito was looking on with sorrow, imagining this to be Konoha. Naruto's eyes however showed something that shouldn't belong on such a young face. His eyes were showing open hatred and rage, but if you would look closely, none of it was directed at the village, rather it was meant for Gato. I'll kill the pig slowly, rip out his nails, cut his nose, sever a finger after finger, skin him alive. Feast on his flesh while he struggles. Eat him alive, he must die. Slowly an insane smile was plastered on his face along with wide eyes and malicious giggles. But nobody besides Mito saw his little episode. As quickly as his expression came it disappeared, leaving behind a normal-looking boy. What was that? Mito wondered as she stared at her brother. He just glanced at her with a blinding smile before walking to their client's house. In the end she decided to drop it. Tazuna took the lead as they got to a two-story house and knocked on the door. A middle-aged woman opened the door. She wore a pink shirt and a blue pants. She also had dark blue hair, almost black with black, pupil-less eyes. Her eyes widened when they landed on Tazuna and she smiled as she hugged him. Welcome back to-san. I hope nothing happened on your way. She asked, worried, but Tazuna just waved her off. Nah, I am fine Tsunami-chan, thanks to these fine shinobi. He smiled as he gestured to the group behind him. Mito was leaning on Naruto and was grinning. Sasuke was smirking with his hands in his pockets. Naruto had his hand on his sister's waist as he grinned slightly with Kakashi on his shoulder. Thank you for protecting my father, kind Shin, oh my god. What happened to him? She was instantly at their side checking Kakashi over for injuries. Naruto just grinned and waved her off. Just chakra exhaustion, give him a week and he's gonna be alright. This calmed Tsunami down, although there was still worry in her eyes. If you say so, please follow me. You can stay here and I will show you to your rooms, but two of you will have to share. She looked apologizingly, but Naruto and Mito waved her off, saying they are siblings. This relieved Tsunami as she didn't want to hear moans at night. Naruto laid Kakashi under a blanket and checked if he didn't get a fever before going to his own room. It was dark, so he stripped down to only his boxers and laid on the bed. He was soon joined by Mito, who only had her panties and a big t-shirt. She leaned on him with a smile. "Good night, Naruto-kun, my love," she said as she kissed him on the cheek. "Good night, Mito-chan, my mate," he said as he kissed her forehead, and both closed their eyes, letting sleep take them. Not bad for a hasty-made jutsu. I couldn't have done it better myself. Mostly because I don't have anyone to this with. You managed to save her yet again. You're using my power quite nicely. But be aware. You haven't seen the side effects yet. And believe me, you don't want to see them. But you will. Just as I did. Don't lose yourself to your bloodlust, Naruto. Don't make the same mistake as me. This power I gave you. It does more than just give you strength. It changes who you are. If you let it, that is. Will you be yourself, or will you succumb to the guilt, remorse, disgust, hatred and fear that builds within you? I wonder, will you be able to remain human after all you have done, and will do? An enchanting beauty was awakened from her slumber as her pillow shifted. She opened her eyes, slowly, only to find a pair of sea-colored eyes staring right into her amethyst ones. She blushed at his charming and easygoing smile. She leaned up and kissed his whiskered cheek, unknowingly sending a pleasant shiver through her brother's spine. She grinned at him because of his light blush. "Good morning, Naru-kun," she said cheekily while stretching. "Pet names, huh? Well, two can play at that game," Naruto thought as he stood up from the bed, also stretching. "Good morning, Mi-chan." Now it was his turn to grin as she blushed a deep scarlet. She threw a pillow at him with a huff. He just dodged it while laughing softly. Deciding to end the fun before it began, he tossed her clothes at her and told her that he will meet her downstairs. And with that he dressed and went to the kitchen for some food. The redhead was just lying in her bed, thinking about her brother again. She seems to do that a lot lately, she idly noted. I wonder what we will be doing with Kaka-sensei being out of commission. Probably chakra control. I would quite like to know how to walk on water like that. It looked so cool, Datebane. It doesn't work. Every time I try to think of something else his face pops into my head. I'll have to do something soon or I'll go crazy. She was getting desperate. She just wanted to tell her brother how she feels, show it to him, hold him, kiss him, and much more. But she has to wait for the right moment. After a few minutes she came down the stairs with Kakashi leaning on her as he walked beside her. She sat him down before smiling cheekily and sitting on Naruto's lap. This got them raised eyebrows from everyone, but they decided to not comment. They ate their meals in silence, Naruto feeding his redhead the fish they had. Everyone looked mildly happy, momentarily forgetting about their troubles. Moments like these were rare to come by in this country these days. They finished their food and Tsunami went to wash the dishes, while Kakashi laid on the couch while reading his book, ignoring Tsunami's glare. Tazune had just read some old book while waiting for the shift to start. Sasuke sat in the corner and read a scroll, probably about Kaiden jutsus. Mito said she will take a look around the village and Naruto decided to go as well, seeing that there is nothing else to do anyway. They were walking beside each other as was their usual, Mito leaning and Naruto had a hand on her waist. But the aura around them was not happy, it was careful, cautious and saddened. Everywhere they looked they saw a boarded-up house, poor people walking around, few of them reduced to beggars. It saddened Mito seeing them like this and she got a new drive to guard Tazune even more. Naruto was faring differently. He was saddened too, but his sorrow soon gave way to anger, then fury and last but not least rage and bloodthirst. That Gato. That's it, the second I see him he will lay dead on my feet. He vowed to himself as they continued their walk. The people around them had mixed reactions of seeing ninja in their country. Some were giving of a sense of fear while others had hope for them to liberate them. It was very likely that they would be interrupted in their walk, but they thought it would be by someone curious about them or a beggar, not Gato's lackeys. One was holding an older man by his throat, pushing him against a wall. Other one was holding a woman while another one molested her ass. The fourth one, probably the leader, just laughed at their misery. "So old man, will you give us the money or do we have to take away your daughter?" asked the leader, with a lecherous grin, while holding the face of the brown-haired girl. Naruto saw this happening and was going to intervene, but as his eyes landed on the man's daughter he imagined his sister in her place, and that made him freeze for a second before his eyes changed to a menacing yellow. His clawed hands stretched, preparing for the slaughter. His teeth got razor-sharp and spiky, awaiting sweet flesh. He looked down at Mito, giving her a reassuring smile before walking toward the commotion. "I would let them be, if I were you," the whiskered teen told them as glared at them. The leader just laughed mockingly at him. "Why should I, kid? Run to your mommy before we beat you senseless." He dismissed him with a casual wave of his hand, as if he wasn't worth his time. This made his blood boil and he gritted his teeth into a snarl as he glared at them with even more ferocity. "You will release them right now," he demanded slowly, keeping his rage at bay, for now. The thug who held the man released him and stood beside his leader while the molester joined as well. There were a lot of people watching the spectacle now. "Kid, last warning. Back off or we will kill you," the leader threatened with a raised katana, the rest getting theirs as well. Murmurs began from the crowd, concern for the boy, encouragement for him. Naruto hunched over a little bit and a bloodthirsty smile soon overtook his face as he chuckled deeply. "It's time for breakfast." With that he charged forward, the startled thugs soon recovered and the leader went to impale him on his blade only for Naruto to spin around him, now standing back to back with him. The two beside the leader went for a stab only for Naruto to smile and spin the leader to his position. Blood spurted as two blades embedded into his chest, killing him instantly. He used their shock to his advantage and, ducking under the blades, sliced their jugulars open with his claws. They held their neck, trying to desperately slow down the river of blood coming from them. Futile. They crumbled to the floor. "Dead. Make a single step and I will slice her neck open. I mean it. Stay away." The last one trembled. To Naruto he was just cattle that couldn't accept its death. He just grinned toothily, crouched and leapt at him. The thug released the lady in horror of the horrific sound coming from the teenager. Nothing could save him now. He landed on him, straddling his waist as he tore into his torso and stomach with ferocity of a hungry animal. He chewed on his organs as he trashed underneath him, not caring a single bit about his screams. "You screams annoy me," he stated coldly as he ate away at his throat, the thug making only gurgles before stilling. He slowly stood up and felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned around to the side of Mito, with a caring smile on her face. She gave him a kiss on the cheek and hugged him. He hesitated before slowly hugging her back, the sulfur in his eyes bleeding out, leaving behind a calm ocean. "Thanks." He mumbled his gratitude as he hugged her tighter before letting her go. Suddenly the crowd erupted into cheers and shouts of gratefulness were heard among the crowd as they witnessed a new hope for their country. Naruto blushed a bit as they kept praising him and proclaiming him a protector of Wave, which didn't sound bad to him. He took a deep breath and the villagers settled instantly. "Villagers of Wave, today is the day Gato's rule will begin to dwindle." Team 7 consisting of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha and Kakashi Hitaki shall free you of your shackles. Your country will be free once again. He shouted at the end while raising his right fist, the crowd mirroring him with roars of approval. What the hell is going on here? Everyone turned to the new guests and recognized them as Gato's thugs. 8 of them to be precise. Naruto smiled and patted his sister's shoulder with a smile. "I'll sit this one out, why don't you have a go at them?" he suggested as sat down at a thug's half-eaten corpse. "Lazy bum," his sister commented, but by the smile on her face you could tell she was only joking around. "Hey, I'm the one who just killed 4 people, you deserve your fair share of action." With his piece said he laid his head on the guy's open stomach and relaxed, ready for his sister to begin the slaughter. "I'll ask one last time. What is going on here?" The pig shouted again only to be silenced forever by the kunai in his forehead. The rest looked at Mito who had an outstretched hand, indicating it was her who threw the deadly projectile. "You whore, we will kill you," they roared in anger as they charged at her recklessly, their judgment clouded by anger at the loss of their leader. She just grinned and, with chakra-reinforced legs, became a blur, appearing behind the last guy. She quickly shoved a kunai in his heart, killing him instantly. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 6 more of her popped into existence, ready to kill. The two forces charged and collided, but mere thugs had no chance at defending against ninjas. One by one they fell, until only Mito remained. She grinned and plopped down next to Naruto. How was I? It was meant just for a bragging question, but the answer brought red to her cheeks. Beautiful and deadly, just how I like it. He emphasized his statement by sitting up and hugging her from behind, breathing her scent through her soft and vulnerable neck. The blood that was just below the surface made his head spin with crazy ideas and thoughts, one of which was more pronounced than the others. Mine. His mind screamed as he nuzzled her neck before getting up with her and making their way back to Tazuna's house after accepting the villagers' kind words of thanks. They opened the front door, Mito stepping in first, and they were instantly questioned where they were by Tsunami, who was worried sick for them, as it is lunchtime. They just both scratched their necks and grinned apologizingly. Well, we went to the center of the village and we got in a fight with a few of Gato's bandits that were threatening an old man and his daughter, so Naruto-kun killed them. Then I killed the group that arrived to see what caused such ruckus from the inhabitants. We basically got thanked for our bravery and for giving them a new hope, and now we are here. She held a cheeky smile after that. All of them were staring at the two with wide eyes. Kakashi's book slipped through his fingers onto the floor. Tazuna spitted his sake. Sasuke's attempt at a new jutsu burned his eyebrows off, and Tsunami dropped her kitchen knife. Naruto acted and blurred out of sight only to catch the falling knife. Heading towards her foot, he set it on the kitchen table and smiled at her before appearing next to Mito again. We will leave you so you can snap out of it. We'll be back for lunch. With her piece said, Mito grabbed her blondie's hand and dragged him to their bedroom. Naruto had no time to think before he was thrown onto the bed and Mito was snuggling against him. She just kissed his cheek and closed her eyes, going to sleep. It happened so fast that Naruto could only blink, shrug, and go to sleep as well, not caring that they got out of it half an hour ago. 4 days later. It has been 4 days since they ignited the fire of hope inside Wave's inhabitants, and everything was going pretty smoothly. The bridge would be complete in a week at most. No signs of Zabuza, who they resolved alive. Gato's thugs were less and less common, and everyone had fun with Tazuna's family, except for Inari, that is. Even Kakashi has healed considerably and was doing everything on his own again. The only really bad thing is that Naruto does not feel alright. It was early morning, the sun hasn't risen yet and it won't for some time. Mito is sleeping peacefully next to her brother. He, however, does not sleep peacefully. He was tossing and turning, his body sweaty as he held his head. He was pale, deathly so, his veins showed clearly. His eyes were shut tightly, his body shaking, his head felt like it was going to explode. Monster. A voice whispered. He tossed around more. Demon. He was clawing at his torso, his muscles clenched. Beast. His eyes changed behind his eyelids. Cannibal. His teeth became sharp as razors. You want more, don't you? His nails transformed into wicked claws. Monster. Demon. Beast. Cannibal. Freak. Psycho. He curled into a ball holding his head, gritting his teeth. The voices were yelling and screaming now. Shut up, shut up, shut up. He whispered, trying to stop the voices, but their volume only increased. Shut up, shut up, shut up, he said painfully, the voices only increasing their assault on his psyche. Shut up, shut up, shut up, he screamed at the top of his lungs, alerting everyone in the house. Quick footsteps were heard as everyone in the house slammed open their bedroom door. Mito tried to calm him down, but as soon as she touched him he jumped out of bed, holding his head still yelling like a man possessed. Shut up, he screamed as he opened his eyes, showing all of them the emotions within. They all gasped as they saw them. So many emotions. Anger, rage, sadness, fear, love, hate, regret, disgust, satisfaction, affection, bloodlust. Every emotion swirled around and they couldn't react when he began banging his head on the wall, trying to knock himself out. Kakashi, seeing his predicament, appeared behind him, caught his clawed hand that was coming for his neck and shocked him with a surge of lightning chakra. Ah! He screamed before falling into his arms, but not before saying more. Don't let me kill you too. Everyone widened their eyes. What does he mean? That question swam in everyone's heads as the mask-wearing Nin laid him back into his and Mito's shared bed. He instantly latched onto her and cried silently, tears escaping his eyelids. No sobs came, however. "I'll stay here in case something happens," Kakashi said, exiting the room and returning a while later with his food. And he was surprised to see Sasuke already asleep there, but he just shrugged and went to sleep too. Mito didn't sleep for a while, just holding Naruto as he cried. Does he think he will hurt us too because of the people he killed? He might have liked it, but that doesn't mean he will kill us as well. Right? Not even Kyuubi could talk as she was too stunned to say anything. She didn't expect it at all. She never experienced something quite like this. The next day, the first thing that Mito noticed is that her hands were empty. She quickly sat up and frantically looked around. Kakashi, check. Sasuke, check. Naruto, shit. He ran, he didn't care where, but he ran. He swatted away branches, not caring that his clothing ripped little by little. He couldn't return, not after the show he made. They would ask questions, he would give them the answers, and they would hate him, fear him. He couldn't bear the thought, so he ran, hoping to collect his thoughts. Team 7 has begun their search an hour ago, but they couldn't find him. Finally they decided to call it quits and hope that he will appear. Where the hell did he go? And why? What did he do that he would think that he will hurt us? It doesn't make sense. Sasuke mused to himself, not seeing the reason for Naruto's current mental state. Does he think we will hate him? I couldn't hate him even if I wanted to. Love is stronger than hate. I should have confessed my feelings already. Mito thought to herself, seeing that her hesitance was not good. He regrets something. He loathes himself for something. I should know, I experienced it myself. But what? He probably thinks we would hate him if he told us. That was my fear, and that is why I haven't told anyone. Perhaps I should tell him my story, so he sees he's not alone. Maybe. Kakashi has gone through a rough time in his younger days, and maybe he can talk to Naruto and say that whatever haunts him he can speak to him freely. Yet he didn't know about anything that could do this to him. Yeah, he didn't know. But just because you don't know something doesn't mean it isn't there. They informed the rest of the house and decided to go training. Maybe Naruto would show up to learn. Naruto stopped in a clearing near a river and dropped to his knees and cried. Sobs racked his body as his actions sunk in. He killed so many people and enjoyed it, he ate their flesh. He threw up at that thought. He recalled every swipe of his claw, every chomp of his teeth, the taste and smell. Why am I doing this? I no massacred these people. And for what? For revenge? For the fear in their eyes as I teared into them? He cried even harder. He was a monster. An abomination that would be better off dead. He was a danger to his precious people. He took out a kunai, his hand trembled as he held it against his heart. Kami, give me one reason to live. He begged the deity as he looked out for a sign. He waited a while longer but sighed as he saw none. He outstretched his hand and sta. We shouldn't be training right now. We should be looking for Naru-kun. Mito, of course. I did all those horrible things to protect my little sister. Thank you, Kami. Now with a new purpose of protecting his sister, he pocketed the kunai and jumped into the tree line. He watched as his team came through the dirt road into the clearing and Kakashi began speaking about the new exercise. I know Mito, but we didn't find him in an hour and I believe he wouldn't abandon us that easily. We are going to continue training, and when we find Naruto I will talk to him. I believe I can talk some sense into him. Is that okay? After getting their nods of approval he walked over to the river. It wasn't too wild but it wasn't a calm stream either, and walked onto the middle of it. Your training will be another chakra exercise, water walking. You have to constantly emit chakra in order to stay on the water. The deeper the water, the more chakra is needed. Well, get to it, team. With that he smiled and laid on the water and read his book, ignoring the grumbling of his students about lazy porn-loving senseis. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. That was his sensei all right. He just sat back, with his hood raised, and watched the show. Training, yes training. He chuckled as Sasuke stood on the water with a smirk, only to fall into the river because of a small wave. He silently laughed and blushed as Mito fell into the water, making her clothes wet, making them cling to her body more. Is she not wearing a bra or something? She didn't bind her chest either as I can see. Why though? Isn't binding them more comfortable? He remarked in his head as he innocently studied his sister's trying to find a reason to not have it bound. other than the discomfort for wearing them the entire day, and failing miserably. He continued to watch until it was night time. The day was kind of repetitive. Sasuke would grumble then smirk in victory. Kakashi lazed around, ignoring Mito's outbursts, and the already mentioned redhead would be cursing every god in existence when failing. In the end they decided to call it quits and go home. Naruto was preparing to leap off to find a place to stay the night, but Kakashi's voice stopped him. "If you want to talk, you know where to find me. I think that I have some words for you, but I will wait for you to try and sort it out yourself. Be safe." Kakashi's back was turned to him the entire time, but at the end he looked behind him and flashed him an eye smile before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto smiled to himself as he absorbed the man's words. He shook his head and then leapt off to find shelter, all the time thinking about Kakashi's words. "I'll go to him tomorrow. Although I am very interested in what he has to say." After almost an hour he found a cave and, while releasing a tired sigh, went into it. "Finally, I just want to sleep right now." With that thought he laid on the ground of stone and began to doze off. Ruah-arr. A loud roar sounded behind him, making him snap his sulfur eyes open and rolled to the side, only to dodge claws of an apparently very irritated bear. "Shit, this is probably its home. Well, not anymore. Now it's about to become mine," he thought with a smirk as he charged, the bear doing the same. Claws met claws as they clashed. Naruto spun around, cutting it on the side. The boar released a pain-filled roar before swiping at Naruto in blind rage. He just jumped over it and landed on the bear, then he proceeded to tear at its neck with his mouth. The boar tossed around and was able to get Naruto off it. He slammed his back into the cave's wall, making him grunt. He had no time, however, as the bear swiped at him again. He jumped away, but due to his position and slight concussion he got 3 gashes on his left shin. He landed unsteadily, his wound not healing for some reason. He growled angrily at the bear and receiving the same response. They circled each other, Naruto's clawed hands twitching in anticipation, and the bear glared at him. They were both injured, but the bear more so, and it knew that it would not live much longer, and with that information in its head it charged recklessly, hoping to at the least finish its killer off. His eyes widened from seeing it charge like that, but not one to be outdone, he charged as well. They met in the middle and they wrestled for a while, and it looked like the bear was winning until Arghh. Naruto released his own roar, and using chakra he overpowered the bear and forced it on its back. He straddled the bear's stomach and tore into it with his claws, and then ate its insides while it still whimpered in pain. He just chewed on everything he saw, and after a few minutes there was nothing but bones. He panted for a while, then calmed himself and went to sleep. "This is why I don't want them to be around me, I am dangerous to them." And with that sad thought he slept a restless night, full of nightmares. Next day, he woke up with cold sweat dripping from his face. The nightmares were intense, but he knew that they were only dreams. He stood up and he quickly noticed that the pain in his leg disappeared along the soreness of his fight. His body was also looking healthy again, but as he had no mirror he didn't notice this. He shrugged before stretching and exiting the cave. He needed to put his arm up because of the sun's glare. "It's a nice day, I see." He couldn't help but smile. He liked days like these, although his primal side preferred shaded areas. He went to their temporary training ground and stripped down to nothing before diving in. He emerged and cleaned himself of the grime and blood. He sighed in bliss, a peaceful moment at last. After his bath he checked his gear. "Sigh, damn, I have a few dozen shuriken, 12 kunai, 2 paper bombs and a single smoke bomb. Tisk, this mission is taking too long for my tastes. And my clothing is kind of done for." And it was true, he had 3 tears on his right shin, his shirt had its left sleeve shredded to the elbow and his hood had little nicks at the edge. He dressed and began walking towards Tazuna's house, but he stopped once he remembered his team's training session. He jogged back to the stream and began practicing, not noticing the lone eye aimed at his back. With Kakashi, he watched as his student trained. He went out for a walk, but instead he ended up running into this blonde little gaki. He just perched himself on a branch and read as he occasionally glanced at his progress. He chuckled a little as he fell into the water for the 48th time, not that he was counting. He was however not prepared for the kunai flying for his head. He ducked and looked with wide eyes as Naruto stood in front of him with yellow glowing eyes, pointy teeth and black claws. "Sup, Kaka-sensei. The blonde greeted cheekily, knowing that he just stunned and maybe terrified his teacher. So the genjutsu back then was a half-truth. I am embarrassed that I fell for that, but also proud that you could fool me like that. He smiled at him as he praised him, making him blush faintly. But soon a grim and serious aura overcame their conversation when Naruto spoke. I'm a danger to you. His words were cold and his stare even colder. He was stating it like it was a fact and not something to debate about, but Kakashi tried anyway. Now, calm down for a minute. That you have razor teeth and claws does not make you dangerous. He chided him half-heartedly, trying to lift the mood. He realized it didn't work when he saw the anger in his sensei's son's eyes. On their own, maybe not. But with the bloodlust and craving for human flesh, yes. I want to kill people and eat them, Kakashi. I can smell their skin, their flavor. You and Sasuke don't interest me. But Mito-chan has the best smell I have ever encountered. I can't bear the thought of hurting her. He had sadness and self-loathing in his eyes now, his anger laying still. Then don't. This answer made him look up at him in outrage, but before he could start yelling at him his sensei stopped him with a raised hand. You always have a choice. You can kill and eat Mito to satisfy yourself or you can overcome that urge. It's your call. The problem here is that you don't trust yourself with holding back. We trust you, but you don't trust yourself. I might have a way for you to override this hunger for her flesh, but you won't like it. It will be a trial through fire. Naruto contemplated Kakashi's words and in the end he found them to be true. Let's try it, Kaka-sensei. His smile was returned with Kakashi's eye curving into a smile as well. Hour later, Naruto released a deep breath as he stood in front of Tazuna's house. He was nervous and worried. It was a good test for him and a good self-control exercise, but he hoped he wouldn't lose control. Kakashi placed a supporting hand on his pupil's shoulder and nodded at him, completely serious, you could tell because of the absence of a certain book. The front door opened and Team 7 along with Tsunami and Tazuna saw Naruto in damaged clothes and Kakashi trailing behind him. Sup? He greeted nervously as he stepped in front of his sister. Mito's head was tilted towards the ground and you could see droplets of water dripping to the floor. Naruto extended his hand towards her head only to be slapped in the face by Mito. You baka, where did you run off to? We were so worried. She buried her head in his chest and punched him in the gut repeatedly. He winced at every blow. Not because of the fists but because he made his sister cry. I'm so sorry, Mito-chan, I didn't know. I was scared that I would hurt you, but it seems I did just that. I'm sorry. He wrapped his hands around her and let her cry as he rested his chin on her fiery hair. If you ever disappear like that again, I'll drag you back and make regret it, got it? Sasuke enhanced his threat with a Sharingan glare. The entire team's sweat dropped at that. Naruto gulped with fear and gently extracted his sister from his chest and looked her in the eye. Mito, see, can I have a bee bite? I mean, Kaka-sensei said it could help me to control my bloodlust. I understand if you don't want to. He was now avoiding eye contact. Mito just smiled at him and extended her hand while dragging back her sleeve to expose her bare arm. Go ahead, I trust you. She smiled at him encouragingly. That is all he needed to know as he gently grabbed her arm and sank his fangs into it. His eyes instantly went wide and his irises became blood red. He tightened his jaw, almost breaking her arm and tugged with his head. Blood flew through the air as time seemed to slow down for everyone. Kakashi's eye went wide. Sasuke gasped in horror. Tsunami screamed while Tazuna's jaw went slack. Mito's eyes opened wide in surprise and pain. Naruto's left eye turned sulfur as he registered their looks. He looked at Mito and into her eyes. What he saw was heart-clenching. There were tears of pain in her eyes, but they held no fear nor hatred, they only held kindness and love for him. He looked at her arm and saw that a good chunk of her forearm was missing. He fell to his knees and hugged himself as he cried and sobbed. The red of his eyes being washed away by his tears, leaving behind regretful sulfur. I'm sorry, please don't hate me. He was cut off as Mito hugged him. It's okay, Kyuubi can heal it and see. You snapped out of it. You are not a danger to us, you were just scared. Let us help you. She kissed his cheek softly, making him blush subtly. Kakashi recovered the first and clapped once. Well, now that is out of the way and everything is being sorted out, I think it's time for lunch. he said cheerfully with an eye smile as he tried to lift the mood a little. Food? Hell yeah, what do we have for lunch, Tsunami-san? Asked Mito excitedly. She always loved food. Her hand had healed already and it seems she has forgotten it just as quickly. It's amazing she isn't waiting a ton with how much she is eating, but then again we are shinobi and chakra is not made from thin air. Naruto licked his lips at the thought of lunch but he froze and that made all of them to look at him. He slowly raised his hand and wiped his mouth using his fingers. He then looked at them and swallowed thickly as he saw blood on them. He then hesitantly stuck his tongue out, and to the growing worry of everyone, licked them clean. He closed his eyes as he savored the taste of his sister. It was so heavenly. He didn't know that he subconsciously shivered and moaned. He slowly opened his eyes to the sight of everyone looking at him in worry. He just chuckled sheepishly as he scratched the back of his head in his usual manner. Hee, sorry, force of habit I guess. Anyway, I'm gonna go hunting. Fresh meat sounds inviting right now. He smiled at them carefully before walking to the door, but before he could walk out he found himself being hugged from behind. And sure enough, it was Mito. Be safe and return in an hour. If you don't, I am coming after you. She tried to be stern but the worry in her voice betrayed her. He turned around and returned the hug as he ruffled her hair in a brotherly way. He grinned at her as he winked and gave a thumbs up. I'll be safe, don't worry. After all, I am on the top of the food chain here. A new predator has entered the hunting grounds. He walked out while throwing a cheeky grin and a lazy wave behind him. Sasuke just grunted, Kakashi just raised his hand in a half-assed attempt at a wave and Mito raised her hand in the air as she threw her last words of encouragement. Show them who's boss. He smiled as he jumped through the treetops. He was glad that their little trial worked out in the end and that everyone seemed to accept him, although there weren't many words. There's going to be a lot of words when I get back, I bet. I'll answer all questions I can. I don't want to lose them after all. I know I can trust them. I will also talk to my mom and dad, and if I have the time then I'll speak with the rest of the crew. I am not scared anymore, I am in control. I can use this power to protect everyone. He thought passionately as he leapt at his unsuspecting prey and feasted on its fresh meat. A great weight was lifted off his shoulders as he thought that he didn't have to hide this from everyone. His guilt and regret of killing disappeared and only strong resolve to protect at all costs remained. He was a protector, he will protect his precious people to the very end. If he has to sacrifice his humanity to do so, then he will. If he has to pay with his own life in exchange for the life of his precious people, he will gladly do so. My enemies will tremble underneath my gaze. I will be a demon for them. I will be their nightmare. He thought in determination as he looked up at the sky, his fists clenched. No precious person of mine will die if I can stop it. Not even gods will be able to oppose me. I will fight every threat. Because I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He declared in his mind as he dug into his meal. HMPH, so they finally know, huh? Not the reaction I anticipated. I must say I am surprised. Your story is getting more and more interesting every day, Naruto. I cannot wait to see what you will do next. I bet the fourth would like to meet you. Maybe, just maybe, I'll let him visit you, just to make this show more interesting. I hope your story will not end abruptly like so many before you. You show promise. Don't disappoint me. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.